This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Well, one more time in 2022. Let's fire it up here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Great to have you all with us. And best of the season. One more day with the Christmas tree, with the fire in the background. And, of course, the grand finale to 2022 and the Marbles Tournament of Champions today. This is going to be a fun one. Big win for the Jets last night. We'll get all over it with Murat and Ken Wiebe. Talk a little NFL with Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, and then our final duties on WST for the year is to team up with our friends at Consolidated Supply, drop the marbles, and award a winner Bomber season tickets for 2023. This is going to be good. Welcome to everyone listening on the podcast, and of course, all of you with us on YouTube. Great to have you all with us. Lots of Jets talk coming up today. We'll hit the World Junior a little bit. Get ready for the New Year's Eve tilt tomorrow with the Winnipeg Jets in Edmonton to take on the Oilers and much more. But you know what? Just as we do this and I bring Michael Remis in, a big thank you to everyone from Michael and myself on the incredible support we've had through 2022. Hard to believe that we're going to be approaching our second anniversary coming up in just over a couple months. But it's been an amazing year, and let's finish it off with a great show. We couldn't do it without the amazing sponsors, though, behind us each and every day on this program, led off by our friends at Princess Auto, Coolbet Canada, of course, Little Brown Jug, Canadian Club, Culligan Water, Vita Health Fresh Market, Wallace & Wallace, Consolidated Supply, F Apparel, Manitoba Battery, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, and, of course, the gang down at Not Auto Corp. One more time in 2022, let's bring in, apparently, the Premier of Manitoba, according to Twitter.
Yes, yeah.
Michael Remis, what's going on? Congratulations on your appointment.
Yeah, I got appointed Premier on Twitter today by the account. Who's the Premier on Twitter? Premier who? So I'm going to be using the show to come up with some good ideas here for the province.
You've got a mandate.
I've got some ideas, and if anyone wants to reply to my tweet during the show, I can do that. But yes, I am the Premier, so it's excited to be here. Big day, last one of 2022. Also the marble race, also coming off a big Jets win, and this show is so much more fun after wins. And it just seemed like a fantastic atmosphere, a festive atmosphere last night at Canada Life Center. Sam Gagner, 1,000 games. Mark Shaitley hat-trick with a penalty shot goal. Huss. I don't know if you knew this. You know the Jets record since relocation on penalty shots? I knew it wasn't good. When he scored, I was like, oh, we don't usually see these. You know what the record is now?
That's only the third penalty shot goal in 17 attempts for the Winnipeg Jets, I believe. They were 2 for 16 or 2 for 18 now?
They were 2 for 17, now 3 for 18, which is insane. Only a second one at Canada Life Center. The other one was on the road. So, I mean, it was incredible. I mean, that was the lamplighter there. Dubois coming in and just making it look so easy, roofing the puck. And he's just having a great season. Mark Shaitley having a great season. And we're all holding our breath on Josh Morrissey after that one.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, just as far as Josh Morrissey, we'll get right to it. I mean, there was no real update, although they said it was a little, I believe the quote was a little lower body injury. He is going to travel with the team this afternoon and will hope to suit up tomorrow as the Jets take on the Edmonton Oilers. You mentioned the atmosphere last night, and I've said this for a long time. And I think a lot of longtime ticket game attendees will agree with me on this. The week, if there are home games between Christmas and New Year's, those are often some of the most fun games of the season, certainly crowd-wise. It's always cool, and we all have friends that have moved away from Winnipeg for whatever reason that often come back to the Peg during the holiday season. So we're always seeing a few friendly and familiar faces that we might not normally see at the rink. But another great crowd, full barn last night, sold out. And it was a special night. I mean, I think the vibes were good right off the bat, Remo, because, of course, of Sam Gagner's 1,000th game. And listen, full marks to True North and the gang. They continue to knock it out of the park with some of these presentations that they've done. It was absolutely first class. I'm not sure how much was shown on television. I was at the game. But my God, Sam Gagner might have the cutest young family around. His kids stole the show with the message to dad. Of course, his father, longtime NHLer Dave Gagner, was there as well. And it certainly was great vibes going into puck drop, although the game did not start well in the first minute. I think the first period was rather forgettable from the Winnipeg Jets, but holy smokes, did they turn it around. I'm not sure what Bones had to say in between periods or whether it was someone else in the dressing room. But the Jets came out as an entirely different hockey club in the second period and absolutely dominated with some of their best hockey, certainly defensively over the final 40 minutes, and very much deserved a very important 2 points.
Yes. I mean, start off the game. I had flashbacks to Johnny Oduya giving away a free pizza there in the first game. And I feel bad, that we call Johnny Oduya the pizza man because he had a pretty good career. But, I mean, you only get one first impression, and that was his here. But Sam, I mean, I'm not sure what Sandberg was seeing behind the net, passes up the middle. We heard Jeff Paterson yesterday talk about Kuzmenko's shot, and that was a rocket in the back of the net. And the Jets, they were, I mean, they always say they're on their heels a bit there for the first period, but in the second, really picked it up. Outshot them 20-7 in that second period, Hustler, and throughout the game, 39-22. So they really picked it up, and special teams. It was nice that the Jets finally get some power plays. We've been talking about, how there's some infractions that have gone uncalled. Well, yesterday they had the power play advantage going 2 for 4, and then also shut down Vancouver on the penalty kill 2 for 2. So, maybe you'd like to see them score a bit more on 5-on-5, just in terms of long-term sustainability, because we've talked about, loading up the lines versus, more balanced approach, but it was the power play that did it. Did it for them yesterday, and Mark Scheifele leading the way with 3, and Adam Lowry looking strong too. And I do have to give a shout out to Stenny. Has a couple of shout outs. Stenny, Kevin Stenlund. I know Bones loves the draws. 12 of 17 yesterday on the dot, 70.6%. That's pretty good. That line with Barron and Stenny and I forget who the
Axel.
other. And Axel. I mean, Axel had like 5 shots on net. Their shot attempt numbers were very impressive in terms of limiting the opponent. 10 minutes of 5-on-5, 13 on ice shot attempts for, 2 against, and it was Kuhlman who was with them the other day, and they had similar numbers. And also Ville Heinola had also very strong shot attempt numbers, limited against. So, I mean, all around great game against Vancouver. They needed the win, had to stop the losing streak, and now you're off to Edmonton.
Hey, let me just say something about Ville Heinola last night. I think that might have been his best game as a Jet. Certainly his best game. I mean, obviously, when he first cracked the lineup as a young player and opened a bunch of eyes, I mean, it's hard to compare to that. But certainly in this call-up this season, I thought that was the most composed, confident Ville Heinola we've seen, making the right decisions. And, in a lot of ways, listen, I don't want to say there was a big opportunity for Ville that opened up with that gaffe of Sandberg early on in the game. But Sandberg certainly has been a little bit more comfortable in the lineup, obviously, throughout the season than Ville has. He looked just great last night. And I'm looking forward to asking Murat and Ken what he thought of Ville. But, obviously when, that first game that he came back on the most recent call-up, I thought that he was just so, and that garnered some conversation, shall we say. You got to call it the way it is. And I'll be honest, I wouldn't even spend much time looking at the analytics or whatever the game last night. If you were sitting there and you watched Ville Heinola, he looked like, in a lot of ways, like he's arrived. And if he plays like that on a consistent basis, he's going to make it very, very difficult to take him out of the lineup. Really looking forward to seeing what he can do coming up tomorrow night against the Edmonton Oilers. Well, as we mentioned, Reem, it was all about Sam Gagner to begin the game. The Vancouver Canucks kind of owned that first period. And, Connor Hellebuck let that first one in through no fault of his own, just an absolute rocket on a one-timer after the giveaway. But he did make some big saves in that first period. It kept them in. And as I mentioned, it just looked like a completely different team. And, I did the pregame with Kelly Moore yesterday on CGOB, and I was obviously at the game, so I wasn't listening. But from all accounts, listening to Kelly and JT earlier today, Dubois was very much honest about his team's performance and his performance in the first period. And man, it was just a great turnaround. And that game, that second period, we want to talk about the blueprint, especially the blueprint of winning at, as decimated as the team is with players being out of the lineup. That was the blueprint last night. I mean, they were tenacious. The forechecking was great. They did not give the Vancouver Canucks a lot of room and space in the neutral zone. And everybody stepped up. I'm glad you mentioned Kevin Stenlund. I thought he was great last night. Axel Johnson-Fjallby, I thought, had a really, really strong game. Axel's had put a few strong games together lately after, a couple weeks ago, finding himself out of the lineup for a game. And I think we're seeing this competition right now kind of play out. A lot of guys that maybe weren't expecting to get the amount of playing time that they have been, rising up last night as the team knew that they were in a tough situation. And man, I can't say enough about Adam Lowry. A seamless move to the wing, another monster game last night, could have easily scored a goal, was tenacious in front of the net last night, and obviously did get on the score sheet with that nice assist to cap off the hat trick for one Mark Scheifele.
Yes. Again, Scheifele, second hat trick of the month. And how many he's got in his career? 7th of his career. You look at that number, and I remember like the first 3 years or 4 years of Jets 2.0 when they couldn't even get a hat trick. So seeing with that one guy's got 7. And Hustler, he's also moving up on franchise rankings for points now, 7 points behind Ilya Kovalchuk, the Jets Thrashers legend, for second in franchise history. Don't you love those? And look, the home winning continues, 13-6-0 at home. That's 4th in the NHL. One thing that Bones talked about after the game, Huss, is, look, they said this after the game on Tuesday, they lost to Minnesota. First game back from a break, entirely different lineup. They got away from their game, got away from their details. I think having that practice yesterday certainly helped them reinforce what they need to know in terms to what makes them successful. And they certainly did that. And look, they got punched in the mouth a little, or self-inflicted at the start of the game with that giveaway. But, once they collected themselves, had a strong second period. And that penalty shot by, we talked about penalty shot. I think that really shifted momentum in the building. Penalty shot gets everyone on their feet. And for him to deliver a goal, as we said, the third penalty shot goal since relocation, 3 of 18. Like, should I do some quick math here? 3 of 18. What's that percentage? 16% success rate. So, not great percentage, but he just made it look so easy, Huss. And he scored a great goal.
Do you know who scored the 2 penalty shot goals?
Okay, Ladd?
Nope.
Like Little? Like Wheeler?
Yes.
Those are my easy.
Brian Little. Brian Little had 1.
Okay, and who's the other one? Like someone that I wouldn't guess, or
someone that's injured right now.
Oh, is it Ehlers?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, Ehlers. 1 against Pittsburgh and 1 against Tampa. Those are the 2 successful.
Thank you for looking that up. Thank you. That's a good game. To guess.
We'll maybe add it. Maybe we'll get out to Little Brown Jug, do another trivia event, and anyone that was listening today can remember that. We'll put that in on the questions going on. Matt, I've just mentioned the crowd, and I know a lot has been made. I don't know whether some of the scribes are tweeting about the good attendances. I know there's been something made, amongst some in the media about some of the attendances that had been a little lacking. But I gotta say, crowd on Tuesday was fun. It was festive, but just the game kind of dictated that it was tougher to get in, and the way the Minnesota Wild played last night. Holy smoke, did the place erupt when Pierre-Luc Dubois scored that penalty shot goal, Remo. And I think people had a pretty good feeling about the Jets and where they were after that brilliant tip of Mark Scheifele to get the team on the board and even up and the way things were going. But you got to make the most of opportunities like Pierre-Luc Dubois did. And for a guy that was so down on what his team did in the first period, he as well had a monster second period. And as they said, scored that goal. And at that point, the Jets were looking pretty good. But man, what a huge goal with 2.5 seconds left in the second period, taking advantage of that power play opportunity to go into the frame with a 2-goal lead, which obviously a lot different than being tied or just being up 1. And from there on in, the Jets look great. Connor Garland did score a relatively lucky goal from behind the net, bouncing it off Connor Hellebuck and in. But, man, there was no panic whatsoever in the Winnipeg Jets, even after Vancouver got to 3-2. And all it did was give an opportunity for an empty net and Mark Scheifele to get the hats flying onto the ice.
Okay, Mark Scheifele scoring with, 2 seconds left. Is that the first time ever on a power play where the crowd yelling, shoot, has actually worked? Because normally...
I love that you said that.
Normally, I don't think Mark Scheifele's like shooting... That puck takes some time, but I mean that's just some awareness, or he just had ears and heard everyone yelling at him to shoot and put one on net. Adam Lowry, you don't really think of him as like a power play guy, but there he is in front, and his huge body making a screen in front of Colin Delia, who was very solid, and the puck went in. So hey, you can't score if you don't shoot, and there was Mark Scheifele. I mean, just. The guy's been on fire in terms of goal scoring this year, 23.
Hey, by the way, quick shout out to our boy Jay Remo.
Yeah.
Jeremy, what is up? Of course, regular listeners will know that when Remis was away, Jeremy held it down with me doing the production for Winnipeg Sports Talk, and I'm sure we'll see Jeremy at some point helping us out again in 2023. Great to have you. Great to have you here with us. Now, Remo, actually, speaking of the hat trick, I do have one request of you as the premier today.
Yes.
Is there any way you can lobby Mark Scheifele and the Jets for a new goal song? Because for a guy that's scoring as much as he's doing, that song, like, I don't want to say it's a buzzkill, and it's probably the best named goal song. Like, if you're just looking at it on paper without listening to it, sounds pretty cool. The Greatest Showman. I don't even know what song that is, but I got to tell you, it's at the bottom of the Jets goal song power poll, and it's somewhat ironic because all this guy is doing is lighting the lamp this year. And, we saw the people, and by the way, people are starting to get into the Dubois chant on Hey Baby when Pierre scores. We heard it last night. It's good. It's growing. I think that's going to be big time as we get later on in the season. But as I said, if there's one New Year's resolution, if people at the Jets are listening to this right now, have a talk with 55. I think a new goal song, although the fact of the matter is he's playing so well, I don't know, superstitious people wouldn't want to change anything. But the bottom line is that is lacking a little bit. The only thing lacking in Mark Scheifele's game is the goal song right now because he's scoring. And I'll say this, and you know what, listen, it's kind of funny that this is the final show of 2022, and this is the way we're ending, because I and many people that watched the Winnipeg Jets last year were down on Mark. I think there were some people in the organization that were down on Mark for the way that he played. The turnaround of Mark Scheifele this year is absolutely, I mean, we've talked about Josh Morrissey's ascendance to a star defenseman in the league. Scheifele last night, it was a perfect example of what he's doing this year, the way he's leading on the ice every shift. And it's not the goals that he scored, it's the attention to detail, it's the hustle and the work in the end. I was with my pal Murray sitting at the game last night, and there was a couple times where we made a point of saying, what a great back check by Scheifele there. And that's what this team needs to do. I mean, it's all hands on deck. It's everyone pulling in the same way. And with 55 leading the way, considering the way last season ended, what we heard from Mark going in, I don't think we could have hoped for a better start to the season for the club. He's been a huge part of it, and pretty fitting way to end this year on such a positive note for a guy that is so important to this franchise.
Yeah, for wondering, Huss, The Greatest Show is a song performed by Hugh Jackman and others, including Zac Efron and Zendaya, from the film The Greatest Showman in 2017. It's the opening track on the Greatest Showman original motion picture soundtrack.
Not a banger. Not a banger. Confirmed.
Despite not being released as an official single, the 18th biggest song of 2018 in the UK. So there you have it. That's from Wikipedia on The Greatest Show. And you say not a banger, not as good as Dubois' goal song, but hey, that's his pick, Huss.
It is. I'm just thinking that you now have the power of the premier. Maybe you can do some lobbying and get some changing. That's the one thing I would love to see happen next week. Next week as we get into 2022. Jets hit the road for this game against the Edmonton Oilers, and then are right back at it next Tuesday against the Calgary Flames, and then Friday against the Tampa Bay Lightning, and then the Canucks right back here on Sunday afternoon. So. Listen, no easy games coming up. I think these are all quality teams, and it'll be a big test to take on Connor McDavid and the Oilers in what should be a pretty festive Rogers Center out there in Edmonton on Saturday night. But man, the size of that win cannot be understated considering the Jets' struggles going into the Christmas break, the game on Tuesday, everything we talked about with things getting a lot tighter in the standings, and Vancouver even knocking on the door. In addition to the individual performances as a team, that was a big one for the team to get 2 points and get back in the right direction. I think feeling pretty good about themselves going into a huge test tomorrow night.
Yeah, you lost 3 in a row. You needed a win. And this was a team that you certainly could beat. We looked at the Vegas odds. People were like, well, what's it like on paper? And the Jets were projected to win that one by money puck about 66% of the time or something. And they certainly did that. I see people in chat saying, I still don't buy the Jets. They can't beat anyone. Well, you can only beat who's in front of you. They needed a win. They got it. And for the scheduling gods are blessing the Jets here because Edmonton is in Seattle tonight. It's going to be a back-to-back tomorrow. So Vantage Jets, and I think they're going to get up. I think it's going to be tough against the Oilers, and Calgary is playing very well. I don't know if you saw Alan Walsh tweeting out that Jonathan Huberdeau's got about 17 points in his last 18.
Oh, Walsh is tweeting? Hubie must be heating up.
Yeah, so Hubie's heating up, and I have Hubie in a fantasy league, so I'm excited about that. But Edmonton, they got it's tough turnaround for them going from Pacific time zone tonight to Mountain tomorrow. You lose an hour when you do that, Hustler. So I think the Jets, hey, they're taking the day off today. They're traveling. We're not going to have any updates. We're waiting to hear about Josh Morrissey, what's going to happen to him. And hopefully he's not there. It sounds like they're expecting him to be in, but we can speculate. I did see someone in chat, right, that they didn't know Tyler Myers could hit on the hit on Josh Morrissey. They said he didn't hit him. Morrissey just ran into him and fell. I think that's what happened.
We didn't remember a very physical Tyler Myers back with the Winnipeg Jets, but he did have a couple yesterday. Turd Ferguson, Kenny won't answer my question on K&R. I'd like to hear a discussion. How close is PLD to an 8-figure salary to commit here? I think it's closer than we'd like. Listen, if the guy's going to earn the money, pay him the money. Obviously you got to make tough decisions when it comes to a salary cap. Listen, if Dubois scores 40 goals and has 90 points going, honestly, that's probably not the best time to pull the trigger on a long-term deal. But listen, whenever they can get it done. And you know what? I don't begrudge guys for making big money. I'll never understand why some people have such an issue or expect guys to stay below their market value. The market is the market. And Pierre-Luc Dubois is one of the top power forwards in the league and is a guy that's making huge, huge contributions to this team right now. Does it start with is it 8 figures? Like we're talking 10 million? Probably not. Could it be 9? If he continues to put up the numbers that he's doing right now, absolutely. Now, whether he'll entertain that, who knows? But as I say, I keep going back to the vibes around this team, how much fun these guys seem to be having playing together, the success they've had under Rick Bowness. I certainly think that the Jets' chances of getting something done are better now. But again, that does remain to be seen. I will say this, though, Remo. Was talking with a couple guys last night more about Hellebuck. And again, we're going to have plenty of time in 2023 to chop all this up, especially come summertime. But, man, if you're talking about those extensions for those two players, in particular, Pierre-Luc Dubois and Connor Hellebuck, the Dubois number just keeps going up. I think we can all agree on that. And I mean, man, with what Hellebuck's done so far as a Winnipeg Jet and his importance to the team, giving you a chance to win each and every night, and how rare super elite goaltending is. Listen, I think we're going to be talking about a Carey Price-like deal if the Jets are able to get him signed and stay here in Winnipeg long-term for another deal.
Yeah, and this is what we're going to be talking about, just an overarching conversation for the next couple of years. Mark Scheifele as well, and I wonder if they give these guys big long-term deals to keep him here in Winnipeg. I mean, I have no idea. I do believe that Dubois, clearly whatever you thought he was going to get last year, that's going up. So if last year you thought he was 8 by $8 million, it's probably closer to 9 now. Maybe even, we'll see at the end of the season if he's getting the 10 range. I mean, if he's a point per game player, and how old is he? 24 here coming up. So it's right in the 3-year prime years. He's 24 right now. Got 39 points in 36 games. Like, what if he has a 90-point season? Someone writes, is the Tkachuk deal comparable? And I haven't, we're just talking on the spot here, but yeah, it sounds like that would be something, kind of similar-ish. So
yeah. So listen, as far as Turd asks, I don't think we're getting to 8 figures, but listen, if you're going to do an 8-year deal, we're probably talking in the Matthew Tkachuk range. If again this season continues to go as well as it's been for Dubois. One other thing we are going to get to before the end of the program is our top 10 shows of the year. And it's kind of funny, some of the hot button topics in the days where we had the most people in here for the live shows on YouTube. So we will get to that a little later on. And by the way, most of you are well aware that this afternoon, at the end of the show, is the finale of our Marbles Tournament of Champions with our friends at Consolidated Supply. We tweeted this out yesterday. We spun the wheel. We had 526 entries, I believe, from the website. And the 3 final marbles into the race, T-Bone, who has been in, T-Bone's been in a number of times, Rob Somerville, and Candace. So congratulations, all familiar names and faces to, names at least in the Winnipeg Sports Talk chat. So good luck to all of you. We'll be playing for those Bomber season tickets from Consolidated Supply at the end of the program. Our final act of 2022, and Michael Remis has selected, the CTO has a great track which has been test run and ready to go for it. And of course, a huge thanks to Consolidated Supply. They are back open next week on January 3rd. And hey, as we get into 2023, we can start thinking about the end of summer and spring, or maybe think about some landscaping projects, artificial turf, irrigation, maybe an outdoor kitchen for the backyard. And listen, a hot tub makes every property that much better. They've got it all, Consolidated Supply. Pop down and see them at 1395 Niagara Road East or online at cte.ca. And a special thanks to Joe over Consolidated Supply, who was the genesis for our Marbles Tournament of Champions and their incredibly generous donation of those Bomber season tickets that one of the qualifiers, will be winning at the end of the program. We also have to have a huge thanks to Wallace & Wallace for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk and our Unsung Hero program, along with Josh Morrissey. Of course, Josh has been an unsung hero, I think, for a while with the Winnipeg Jets, but there's so many unsung heroes in Winnipeg and Manitoba doing great things quietly, selflessly in our community. We want to hear about those people. If you know of someone, especially around this time of year, that spent hours, whether it be feeding the needy right now or doing things around the holidays to brighten up for those less fortunate, let us know about them. Just drop us a quick email at unsunghero@winnipegsportstalk.com. Of course, we had Peter and Paulette, the Soup Fairies, who are our winners for last month. We'll look forward to, in the new year, announcing our December winner. We'll send an autographed Josh Morrissey jersey to that great community citizen, the unsung hero. And Wallace & Wallace is going to donate $500 to the Dream Factory, matched by another $500 from Josh and Margot Morrissey to the Dream Factory. So it's a win-win for everyone. But get those nominations in, WSTers, Unsung Hero at winnipegsportstalk.com. And of course, a huge thanks to our friends at Wallace & Wallace for their support of WST. And hey, heading into New Year's, Vita Health Fresh Market is ready for you. I mean, if you're thinking about a little healthier New Year's Eve or a healthier 2023, VitaHealth's got you covered with great prices on natural and organic supplements, beauty products, and groceries. And of course, healthier snack options, drink mixes, non-alcoholic beverages, and more just in time for New Year's Eve. VitaHealth Fresh Market, empowering people to lead healthy lives with 7 Winnipeg locations, including the new store in Linden Ridge and online at myvita.ca. And a special thank you to my pal Bonte, Kelly, Matt, and the entire great crew over at VitaHealth Fresh Market. And just before we bring in Murat, Donnie and the gang at Manitoba Battery have you covered for 2023. Make sure that you're not one of those suckers calling your friends for a boost or a CAA, because you've got a great new battery from Manitoba Battery that's going to get you through the tough Winnipeg winter. If you're not sure if you need one, pop by and see them at 1026 Logan Avenue to do a quick test and let you know how your battery's looking. And if you need one, you'll shop local and get the best prices in town on batteries. And hey, if you know you need one, don't waste the gas. Just give them a call or hit them up online at manitobabattery.com, the only place where you can save time and money with the best price in town on batteries, and they'll deliver it to you citywide. Get your order in by 3 p.m. and you'll get it the same day. Manitoba Battery, 1026 Logan Avenue, and online at manitobabattery.com. All right, one more time in 2022, let's bring in our pal Murat of The Athletic. Murat, what's going on? Happy New Year to you, my friend.
Happy New Year. One more time in 2022. That just hit me. I got to be honest. It's been a privilege and a pleasure to be here with you.
Well, you're, listen, a great friend and a very popular guest. We figured we finished strong with our final show, and great to have you on today. And, man, good vibes around the hockey team. Good vibes last night in the building. A night that started off with that amazing ceremony for Sam Gagner, and then started off with a bit of a thud. A pizza served up by Dylan Stamberg. An underwhelming first period, to say the least. But, man, I don't know what happened in that locker room, whether it was the coaches or the players themselves. The Winnipeg Jets came out, for my money, had one of their best periods of hockey of the entire season, completely taking over and dominating the second and being rewarded for it. Murat was a huge part of a very big streak-breaking win last night on home ice in front of a full house.
I mean, yeah, the key thing was to break that streak. To get that win for Sam Gagner was nice, I'm sure, for the team as well. But 3 games in a row was as long as it had gotten all year. This was a problem. To start the first period the way they did, that was a problem. That was a major giveaway. And, Dylan Stamberg would certainly want that moment back. And then you get into the way they came back and won. And remember, Rick Bowness has recently called the margin of error for the Winnipeg Jets slim right now. It's very thin. That's what happens when you're missing 3 of your top 6 forwards, 5 of your top 9. I think 5 players have played for the Moose so far this season. 2 more have been picked up on waivers. A third of this team is replacement level right now, and yet they've been able to more or less stay afloat. So the way that they were able to win was by getting back to the basics, playing cleaner in the neutral zone, picking up pucks, getting them in deep, doing those boring but effective things. And for a long stretch, you wondered, did they have the offensive chops to get paid for it? Were they going to turn some of those, that nice play at the point between Ville Heinola and Brendan Dillon or Dylan Stamberg later on in the game into some offense that counted in terms of, getting those deflections in or what have you? Eventually, the power play gets it going for them. Mark Scheifele makes a couple of big plays, and those slim margins for error where you can't realistically give up a goal for free like Winnipeg did, well, things get a whole lot better if you win the special teams games and your big stars like Mark Scheifele come up with those goals. Because, who else was going to do it on a night like that with such a gutted roster? It had to be somebody like him, and Winnipeg got paid for it, got the win, got back to good vibes.
It's interesting you bring that up, Murat, because, a lot of our conversations here was on the fact that, Rick Bowness sort of felt like he was forced to load that top line up going into the Minnesota game with Scheifele playing alongside Dubois and Connor. Went away from that going into last night's game and interestingly moved Adam Lowry off of center to the wing with Mark Scheifele. I got to tell you, I thought Adam Lowry had a monster game and was a big, big part of the success Mark Scheifele had at 5-on-5. And then, of course, when it came to the power play, everybody stepped up, led by 55, who just had another monster game. Not just offensively, though. I mentioned this in the opening. Some real key back checks. I mean, I thought last night was a perfect example of Mark Scheifele, the player he's been pretty much throughout this entire season for the Winnipeg Jets, and why that has been such a difference maker from what we saw last season.
I mean, my goodness, what a turn for him last season to this season, the complete game or something close to it. I don't think anybody expects Mark Scheifele to be a perfect defensive player, but when he's dialed in, he can do things that mean that his defensive impact plus the amount of offense he can create, that's a phenomenal player. That's a top-line center. That's the value that you want Winnipeg to have. When you also have Pierre-Luc Dubois playing at a high level, that's a winning recipe for the Winnipeg Jets. And Scheifele, I think, just full credit for the push forward in his game this year. You mentioned the back checks. I mean, on the power play at one point, he backtracked to stop essentially. It was a mini breakaway right in front of Connor Hellebuck. The play that he made in the neutral zone at 4-on-4, knock a puck down and send Winnipeg on what would have been a 2-on-1. I think Adam Lowry was the other forward, but Vancouver was forced to make an interference penalty. That sets up Adam Lowry winning the faceoff. Winnipeg gets 25 seconds of pressure at 4-on-3. Scheifele finishes the play, and who's screening in front? That's Adam Lowry as well. I just think that combination of all-around play, doing the little things in his own zone, neutral zone, all of those things that get the puck in the right direction, that gives a guy like Scheifele the opportunity to get paid off for his labor because it means more offensive zone time. And it was a tremendous effort. It's been a symbol of a tremendous effort all season. And then you also factor in the fact that, you know, in the post game, the guy barely has a voice. He's been playing through a cold or a flu or some kind of bug, and that's the game he has. I mean, that's leadership, I think. I think that kind of quality at a moment like that when his team needed him, I mean, I'm very impressed, and I have to say, too, Adam Lowry is a good one to highlight. I asked Scheifele specifically about Lowry in the postgame last night because I thought that was a big push from Lowry all over the ice, and Scheifele agreed. He pointed out a bunch of stuff that I wouldn't have seen either. It's just he's a guy that his teammates appreciate. Last thought, I guess I got a lot of words on this topic, but despite all of that greatness, think of how Scheifele got his points. It was on the power play when reunited with all of that skill, and I think that's a little bit emblematic of Winnipeg needing everything to go right to get its goals right now. They don't have the depth of high-end talent with all these injuries that they have to run 4 deep lines and count on goals. Scheifele's production came when he was reunited with guys like Morrissey making plays, Lowry making screens, Dubois, Connor, etc.
You know what? I'll say this, though. I mean, at 5-on-5, and listen, I mean, I don't spend too much time talking about the first period because everyone realized that they needed to be much better, and they were. But, man, if you play like that, you spend the amount of time you are in the opposition zone, you generate that many opportunities. And I'm not just talking about the Scheifele-Lowry line. I'll put Kevin Stenlund's line in particular in that group as well, who really impressed me last night. You are going to find some results at a certain point. I mean, it is somewhat ironic. Hey, they all count, but I mean, the power play in a game like that, the power play is almost more important for the Winnipeg Jets right now without that depth of scoring throughout the lineup to make your opponents pay for going to the box. And, you know, we've talked a little bit about some calls that were missed in the last few games for the Winnipeg Jets. Well, they weren't last night. The Jets got on the power play and they made the Canucks struggling power play or penalty kill unit pay the price. And I mean, that goal that you just mentioned with 2.5 seconds left in the second period was a real dagger, I think, for the Vancouver Canucks, despite the fact that they got a fortunate one to make it a 1-goal game at one point in the third.
Yeah, I mean, it was a Rick Bowness special, right? He was talking all year about the importance of faceoffs at key times. Well, he gets one from Adam Lowry. He talks all year about timely goals. He gets one with 2.5 seconds left. I mean, it's really everything that Bowness has been harping on in terms of what could become a dagger for his team going forward. And I like the talk of the 5-on-5 success as well. I think the metrics bear it out, especially in the second and third period. You like the way Stenlund, Gustafsson were buzzing at different points. There were a lot of plays that wouldn't make a highlight reel, but there were, you know, tips from the point, these, you know, odd angle shots with traffic in front. A lot of guys, actually Jonsson Fjallby, banging away at rebound opportunities. You have Carson Kuhlman all over the offensive zone. And you really like that in terms of the way Winnipeg was playing. And, when you can get that power play goal that can become a dagger, and you can get that quality of play throughout the depth, that, you can see the Winnipeg Jets as full value for the win. It's also just a little bit, interesting in that I don't really expect Carson Kuhlman to finish 100% of those high danger chances, or Axel Jonsson-Fjällby in front and all those sorts of things. But they can still help the Winnipeg Jets control the momentum of that game, buy time for the game to turn on its head after going down 1 goal early. You do enough little things for a long enough time, spend enough time in the offensive zone. Something eventually has to happen, or at least it did for Winnipeg last night, and you like that kind of win.
Yeah, Kuhlman, hey, he did have a few chances, more than I think he's had in previous games. And I mean, listen, at a certain point, if you're riding shotgun with the players that he has been, you got to make something happen and turn a red light on every now and then. And we'll see how long that continues. But I will say this, the way Adam Lowry seamlessly moved to the wing and the way he connected with Scheifele, and I think something that Rick Bowness absolutely loves is the fact that you've got 2 possible face-off guys to try to get the most advantageous matchup, continuing, knowing that it's, saving 20 seconds running around trying to get the puck if you actually win the draw. And the other part of it, and we talked about this last week, Kevin Stenlund continues to impress. And the fact, I believe he was 12 out of 17 in the dot last night. If Kevin Stenlund can be a reliable face-off guy and play, some solid shifts and minutes, that might actually open up Rick Bowness going to this option of Adam Lowry being a winger in the top 6, depending on what's available to him, more often than maybe we would have imagined beforehand. It had been a long time since Lowry hadn't set up at center for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, absolutely. You'd only really see Lowry in that sort of context if it was the last shift of a game, sometimes last moment of a period, things like that, where you just want that. But like in an ongoing role, you can't trust that unless you can trust, your third line center, your fourth line center to kind of step in and do a little bit of what Adam Lowry does in that role. It's tough to say do all of what Lowry does, because this is, I was going to say quietly, I don't think it's a secret. I think Adam Lowry is having one of his best seasons of his NHL career, certainly the best in several years. He's been impactful at all ends of the ice and in all capacities so far this season. And man, what a nice way to respond from being freed from the awkwardness of having his dad as head coach in a struggling season. Bit of a digression, but when you have a Kevin Stenlund who can step in and cover, you give Rick Bowness options. And given how hurt the Winnipeg Jets are, all of the players missing, the unsure timelines about when guys will come back, the more pieces that you can plug into different roles and get realistic results, I mean, those margins of error can turn, those margins of winning can turn on a decision like that, such as Lowry winning that key draw, 25 seconds left at 4-on-3. I mean, those are big moments and details that Winnipeg needs, because they're not going to push teams out of the rink right now. They're absolutely just not going to do that.
Yeah, no, I just found it interesting. I mean, it wasn't something that I'd even considered, despite all of the things that we talked about with the Winnipeg Jets and the adversity and who's available to play. And I mean, as much as it's a tad tip to Stenlund with the way that he's been playing in the middle really ever since he got called up. But it is just another wrinkle that I think Rick Bowness can have at his hand. And I mean, listen, as long as you're playing guys like Kuhlman in the top 6, there probably is room for an Adam Lowry, if they're not loading up that top line like we saw a couple of games ago, to be in that mix. And I'd be surprised if we didn't see it again tomorrow against the Edmonton Oilers. Murat Atesh is with us from The Athletic here in Winnipeg Sports Talk. Murat, I got to ask you about Ville Heinola. It was a week or two ago that he came up, and, I think I said it on the show. We talked about it. We heard what Rick Bowness had to say. A so-so return to the lineup. And I didn't look, and I haven't compared the game-by-game scores. I mean, I'll be honest, I am somewhat skeptical of the individual game scores of the way the data is collected. All that being said, it was obvious, to me at least, that was Ville Heinola's best game, certainly this year as a Winnipeg Jet, and maybe ever. It seems like his confidence level was at a whole different level than it has been as he's trying to come out of the lineup, and interested in your thoughts on what we saw from Ville last night, because I think that if he plays like that on a consistent basis, he'll be doing what we've said for a long time we were hoping to see, just play so well that it'll be hard to keep him out of the lineup regardless of who's around.
Absolutely. And you know what? As an advocate for Heinola to get a long stretch of games, just to iron out some of the wrinkles that we've seen, part of me doesn't know where he found that from. Because last night, he comes into the lineup so proactive. The game didn't happen to Ville Heinola last night. He happened to the game. He impacted the game. And if you've watched the Moose, if you've watched Heinola at any level outside of his Jets auditions so far, you'd be familiar with that aggressive, confident, aggressive in the defensive capacity as well, version of Ville Heinola you saw last night. A lot of plays ran through him. He was a puck transporter in the best sense of the word. He was reading the forecheck. He was skating the puck out of his own zone. He was passing the puck out of his own zone. A lot of his interplay at the offensive blue line led to deflection opportunities and offensive zone time for the Winnipeg Jets. And you never got the sense that there has been, at different times of his NHL stints, that he was so nervous and about to make a mistake because of the stakes of the moment, where even at times when he was showing his brilliance, there was a little bit of fear in his game. I didn't see any of that last night. Nothing whatsoever to complain about. And he became a stabilizer for Dylan Samberg as the game went on too, which I think is solid coaching. That Bonus went back to Samberg after an early mistake, just like he's went back to Heinola after mistakes early in other games, like he had done with Logan Stanley. He gave them a sheltered opportunity to get back in the game, and Samberg and Heinola both ran the offensive blue line for some really good offensive zone shifts later in the game before the pairings eventually switched up again. I would say Heinola was easily in the top 2 or 3 defensemen that Winnipeg had last night.
No, I agree with you. I thought he was really impressive, and I mean, that is great to see, and I'll be interested to see if he can, string a few of these games together. And what a challenge tomorrow night going up against the Edmonton Oilers. It is interesting. We've spent so much time talking about the schedule. I believe the Oilers are actually in Seattle tonight, so the Jets should be getting there before Edmonton is, and you would love to see them build on the momentum of the second and third period last night and the way that they played. Should be a great atmosphere, Murat, I'm sure, in the barn. New Year's Eve, late night game, hockey night in Canada. What do you make of this matchup and the challenge for the Winnipeg Jets to build on what happened last night at home?
Yeah, I mean, Winnipeg, if they win, it's the beginning of some really good vibes to enter 2023 with, because there's a pair of them back to back. It'd be a great opponent, good atmosphere, all of those sorts of things. If they lose, well, then they've lost 3 of 4, and there's still a bit of a trouble spot with a very injured team, with teams chasing them, and the standings are getting closer. Winnipeg no longer has the best points percentage in the West. There's a little bit of wiggle room in terms of what you might project in terms of how things finish. Specifically in the game, I always now at this stage, whenever I think of Edmonton, I think of the Jets playoff sweep of the Oilers a couple of years back, and I think of how good Neil Pionk was in that series, how physical he was, how quick he was in every different direction, and maybe he can reclaim some of those good vibes. I think against the Oilers tomorrow, those are the sorts of things that I look to at a moment like this, because we're talking about defensemen. Morrissey's been incredible. Hopefully he's been healthy. Heinola stepping up. That was great to see. Samberg we've talked about. Neil Pionk struggled defensively this year, and he moves so well forwards. He has the puck skill. He has the offensive sensibilities, and he has a solid points rate. But defensively, he's been a bit touch and go, I would say. And you watch the way he moves out there. There's that lateral mobility, that backwards mobility, and that physicality where he used to step up on guys like Connor McDavid. And there's some memorable hits from that series, and maybe that's the sort of challenge he can rise up to tomorrow night in Edmonton. I don't think we've seen as much of that from Neil Pionk so far this season. So that's one guy that I'm keying in on. We'll see if Mark Scheifele can keep up the momentum. Hopefully he's recovered a little bit from his illness and all of those sorts of things. But it's Winnipeg's key major players that I think that you'd look to on a New Year's Eve game to try to keep the good vibes going.
Murat, the good vibes are always here when you're on the program. Thanks for everything this year. Have a happy New Year. Enjoy the game tomorrow, and looking forward to doing it again with you coming up in 2023.
Right on. Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to everybody out there in the chat and listening after the fact.
Thanks, Murat. There it is, Murat Atesh of The Athletic. By the way, great special, end-of-year special on The Athletic right now. Check that out if you haven't already. Definitely worth your time. We're going to get Ken Wiebe on in just a second to continue the conversation. And again, if you're just popping in, make sure to hang around till the end of the program. No registration needed today because it's the finale of the Marbles Tournament of Champions. One of our qualifiers, will be winning 2023 Bomber season tickets courtesy of our friends over at Consolidated Supply. Boxing week continues over at Royal Sports. I know there was plenty of Christmas shopping done at Royal, but man, right now, incredible deals, including 50% off all Under Armour products in the store, 50% off Doc Marten boots, and 25% against on a whole number of different brands, including Volcom, Brooks Runners, and more. And if you're in the market for a hockey stick, thousands of hockey sticks on sale, up to 50%. Pop on down right up until tomorrow for the Boxing Week blowout at Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. Check out their Instagram, too, for more on all the great deals at Royal Sports Pembina. And great follow throughout the year as well for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. And speaking of Boxing Day sales, you've still got a day or so to take advantage of the massive deals down at F Apparel. All custom clothing, including suits, dress shirts, and more, 20% off. Everything off the rack, like sweaters, polos, 30% off. And guys, what a great time to get all the accessories you need. Ties, tie bars, socks, pocket squares. It's all 50% off right now. The sale runs in store down at 190 Smith Street downtown. And of course, you can also check them out online and take advantage of the great deals online at their website at that's EPHapparel.com. And a big happy new year to Andrew and the gang over at F Apparel. And just before we bring in Ken, showed it to our friends at Boston Pizza. Popped in after the game last night for a couple. Watched the end of that Cowboys-Titans barn burner on Thursday Night Football. And always great. If you haven't tried that jalapeno popper dip, I cannot recommend it strongly enough. It is phenomenal. Obviously, the wings are the best there. But some great options for you on the winter menu right now that's out, including the mac and cheeseburger if you haven't tried that. Tomorrow, if you're not having big New Year's plans, pop down to watch the game. Obviously, great promos during the Winnipeg Jet games at most Manitoba Boston Pizzas. And hey, if you're staying at home or just hanging out with the fam, you can always order online at bostonpizza.com for home delivery. All right, let's serve up a slice of Wiebe's World one more time in 2022. Ken, welcome to the program. And I see you've got an interesting, a new background today. The last time you were on, half of the chat was about what the heck is going on in that photo or picture, I would say. I guess that's not technically a photo. That's art, as we say.
The forest view here, but it wasn't quite working the way that I would wanted it to here. The backyard, it was a little bit too much light, so we'll just go back to the artistry here to end the year off on a high note here. But great to be with you. Beautiful day in the neighborhood, and yeah, interesting times on a lot of fronts here. That's for sure.
You know what? Let's quickly get to last night's game right off the bat. And I actually had to pull a club out of your bag yesterday and throw out a wake up.
Good.
You are wearing the wake up shirt, and I'm not sure whether it was the players or the coach, but there was obviously a major wake up delivered after the first period last night at Canada Life Center to the home team.
Yeah, a little flat beginning, Huss. I would also say this. I said it on the show last night. I mean, those 1,000-game ceremonies are awesome for fans, and I'm sure it was great for Sam Gagner. But to be quite frank, the next time a team comes out buzzing after that might be the first time. There is a lot of energy in the building, but having to stand around for an extra 15 minutes or whatever, even though the Jets were happy to do so to see their teammate saluted for that great milestone and achievement, that it's not uncommon for there to be a bit of a slow start, but the Jets certainly found their game in the last half or last 40 minutes, Huss. I thought it was quite a dominant showing after that. The scoring chances were heavily tilted in the Jets' favor, and were it not for the this was a Vejmelka situation from Colin Delia, the third stringer. I thought he was quite good at times for the Canucks, keeping it tight. But I mean, the Jets, Sean said it best last night, and I don't say this very often, Huss, but or my pal Sean Reynolds said it best. The Jets looked like themselves over the last two periods yesterday, and that's something they haven't really done a whole lot of during this last stretch. We know the injuries and the schedule has been a factor in that department, but the Jets got back to their game, their speed game. And I understand that they didn't have any 5-on-5 goals, and that's okay. They generated enough at 5-on-5 for them to feel good about the style of play that they had. And now it's another test. I mean, the Canucks don't play an overly structured game, Huss, and that's what we saw in the last two periods. A lot of sustained zone time and ample scoring chances, but it was the special teams that pushed the Jets over the edge, I guess. But I would say they should be encouraged because they got their forecheck back, and that is something that it's easy to say, but not as easy to do when you're trying to chase down guys like Quinn Hughes on the back end and Ethan Bear, who's very good at retrievals. So I thought the Jets did a good job on those areas. Could they have done a little bit more in terms of the production 5-on-5? Absolutely. But I think they were generating more than what we saw against the Minnesota Wild. And obviously we know those are two different teams in terms of style of play. But I thought the Jets, they have something to build on going into Edmonton. And that's another test. The Oilers' defensive game has not been as structured either. The Jets probably should catch a break. I'm guessing they're going to be getting Jack Campbell. I mean, I haven't seen I shouldn't say that maybe before looking, but with the back-to-back, I would imagine it's Skinner against the Kraken and Campbell against the Jets. But we'll see more of that when Saturday rolls around.
Going back to last night, we spent a lot of time talking about Mark Scheifele, and we'll certainly get to him because he was a huge part of that win last night. But man, Pierre-Luc Dubois continues to impress. I mean, I know we're going to get to our biggest shows of the year. And let's just say that a certain day in the summer was right near the top of that list. It's been awesome to see. I mean, regardless of what his situation is, the way that he's come in, along with the rest of the club, but bought in to what Rick Bowness has been selling since the first day Bones got here. And this guy's having a career year right now, doing it with Kyle Connor, who continues to star for the Winnipeg Jets. And those two guys almost as a pairing with whoever you're putting on the ice with them. Last night it was Sam Gagner in game 1000. He's given the Winnipeg Jets a ton of chances. And, man, I can't believe the numbers. The Jets had only scored on 2 of 17 penalty shot attempts before last night. But make it 3 last night and play hey baby. That was a huge, huge point of the game.
Yeah, I'd like Remo to go back to the receipts when you and I talked after the Pat Brisson comments, Hustles. There's no doubt he's been able to compartmentalize and really provide a dominant level of play for a long stretch of time here. And it's interesting. I mean, you and I both were very curious as to why Kyle Connor started the year with Mark Scheifele instead of Pierre-Luc Dubois. Connor had the slow start with the exception of the empty netter in the opener. But it allowed Mark Scheifele to get off to this great start, and now Scheifele's rolling, even though Dubois has gone back with Connor. So I know we could argue back and forth, not you and I, but the royal we could argue about whether they should have started the other way around and seen how things have been going. But it actually, the net positive is that Mark Scheifele really got himself rolling, and now he's up to 23 goals. And it hasn't impacted the starts for Pierre-Luc Dubois or Kyle Connor, who's now really got himself going now that he's back with Pierre-Luc Dubois. So I think it's certainly a huge development for the Jets. I mean, we've talked about this countless times. Since the trade was made, this is how the Jets wanted to look, with a double hammer down the middle, and then Adam Lowry providing the checking line. And that's a conversation you and I have had a lot of, and as we end 2022, we should remind all those folks that wanted Adam Lowry on the fourth line. Again, and I understand those guys wanted Adam Lowry to be producing at the rate that he currently is, and he has done an exceptional job. 6th on the team in scoring. He passed Cole Perfetti with that assist, and obviously was involved in the screen on Scheifele's 2nd of 3. Lowry's been great, but I mean, having those 3 down the middle, and even too, I understand yesterday Lowry was sort of in between center and wing with Scheifele as they went back to the balanced attack. And I mean, Kevin Stenlund's emergence has been an important storyline, but man, Pierre-Luc Dubois, the engagement. This is a guy that just loves hockey. And I mean, for those who didn't see the scene yesterday after the game, like nobody happier for Sam Gagner than Pierre-Luc Dubois. You know, he's rocking the, you know, the sleeveless Gagner 1000 shirt, the collector's item there, you know, just talking, you know, so outwardly about, you know, how his former Columbus Blue Jackets teammates who he knew from his own time there that had played with Gagner previously. It said such great things about Gagner. And he had that great story about how, you know, after the games, he likes to stretch out and then he gets the old kick in the back, like, hey, PLD, I'd like to play some soccer now, like from one of Gagner's kids. So he's just having a huge impact on the team. Offensively, obviously, physical engagement, drawing penalties. I know, yes, he still takes a few, but man, you know, as every, you know, previous coaches have said, and we know this, Huss, you'd rather have to tell a guy to maybe tone it down a touch than to have to give him the paddles to get him into the game because he has no engagement or no life. And boy, when Rick Bowness says you have to play with emotion, you have to play with passion. It's hard to imagine him talking, you know, a better example of that than Pierre-Luc Dubois. I mean, who's just done it at all ends of the ice and just continues to, and again, just having fun in the moment, right? I mean, when I asked him about the strategy for the penalty shot, you know, I haven't had one since, probably didn't even have one in junior. I used to not be able to score in breakaways when I was a kid. I'm like, oh, so did you go with the old close your eyes and see what happens? Oh, I can't tell you. That's a secret. We cannot let the next go. You know, I might not get another penalty shot for 10 more years, but I am not letting the secret out just in case.
Well, it was a huge part of the win last night, and certainly was a great moment. The crowd just erupted. I mean, penalty shots are always cool, and obviously, as we talked about, there hadn't been a lot of success in Jets history when it comes to penalty shots, but there he was last night. You mentioned Lowry, and I'm just interested in your perspective on this. I mean, for me, the arrival of Kevin Stenlund, what he's done in the face-off circle, the way he's played a two-way game. Maybe, I'm not sure if Kevin Stenlund wasn't here, whether Rick Bowness would have felt comfortable moving Adam Lowry from his regular role and putting him up with Mark Scheifele. Listen, I mean, there's tons of injuries right now. More will come. What do you think last night's performance, the way those two guys looked together, might do for Rick Bowness when he's considering his options as, you know, often you're playing without a full roster?
Yeah, it's certainly interesting, and you know, we're always trying to wonder and, you know, be a step ahead and see where the old you know, chess pieces fit eventually, and it's just given the Jets another thing to look at potentially, right, Huss? I mean, when Nikolai Ehlers is back, now you have the option of potentially using Ehlers. You know, maybe use Nikolai Ehlers with Pierre-Luc Dubois and Kyle Connor, and then you consider either, you know, whether it's Cole Perfetti or Blake Wheeler. Most likely, even someone mentioned in our chat room after the game, well, what about Wheeler, Lowry, and Scheifele? I mean, that's definitely a dynamic we haven't seen a lot of. You could see a lot of benefits with that kind of line, but it all depends on who's coming back when and who's playing. I mean, I would imagine that even under those scenarios, I think that's a line that they would go to late in games, but I think Lowry, you'd see Lowry on that third line center, and you'd see Perfetti up there during the regular type of play. But I mean, Stenlund's emergence has, right now it's important for him as a third line center, but also I think bigger picture, so we can't ignore the fact that, you know, Kevin Stenlund basically, you know, has, I would say, is in the process of trying to solidify himself for the fourth line center job, Absolutely. But also to be used in, you know, face-off scenarios where both he and Adam Lowry were 71% yesterday, once again on the Thursday night game against the Canucks. Those two guys were, you know, utterly dominant in the circle. So Stenlund is, you know, hey, I looked up a few times yesterday and I'm like, whoa, Rick is rolling the Stenlund line against Paterson or against Miller. And you're like, ooh, that's a big matchup for a guy who started the year in the American Hockey League and doesn't have a ton of NHL time. But that line actually handled itself quite well, Huss, in that kind of a hard match. So it does give the Jets some, you know, again, we've talked about this, you and I, on the show. I mean, about the balance element. I mean, if the Jets have the luxury of potentially playing Adam Lowry up on the second line on the wing instead of a third line center, I mean, I don't think it's their preference, but it gives them an option to do that if they want. And, you know, he's not just being used as a, you know, traditional left winger. He's taking a lot of important faceoffs on the strong side still. So it just gives them some more options, Huss. We talked about this all year long, and, you know, Stenlund, you know, full marks to him. And I'm not as shocked. I mean, you and I remember first day of camp, like Stenlund and
Wheeler
Manalainen.
clone.
Yeah, Stenlund and Menelainen were two guys, Huss, that they catch your attention, not just because of their size, but you start to see a couple elements where you're like, oh, hey, that guy looks like an NHL player. Like, this is not training camp fodder. And we know that he didn't have a great camp. He had an okay camp, enough to catch, the coaching staff's attention. Menelainen did more to catch their attention. But Stenlund was a guy who's still coming back, trying to find his legs. I talked to the assistant coach with the Lake Erie Monsters in the summertime. I'd spoken with him about my story on Jared Bednar, and then checked in with him on the Jets signed Stenlund, knowing that he had coached him. And he said, like, this is a guy who he had really good legs before the knee surgery. Now, it wasn't a burner, but he was a guy that you could notice out there, and he had a really good skill set. And he loved his shot. He was a guy that, like a lot of guys we see, Huss, they don't like Svechnikov, for example, a guy that you see his shot in practice and you're like, man, this guy might score 20 in the show, but he just doesn't get it off enough at the NHL level. And Stenlund had been like that to a degree, but now he's got his legs back. He's got his confidence. He went down to the Moose, played some top 6 minutes, and now he comes up for his next cup of NHL coffee, and he's turning it into a real, it may not just be a cup of coffee, Huss. Like, this is a guy who suddenly grabs a job and like he's trying to make it impossible for the coaching staff to take him out of the lineup. So I give him a ton of credit for his ability to do so. He's a confident guy. He's man of few words, but he's done everything that's been asked of him. He's got good puck skills. He works hard. He's not a burner, but he's fast enough, and he's been a real smart two-way player. And sometimes all you need is to have a coach show faith in you, Huss. And this is another prime example. Stenlund has a coach who believes in him, has given him an opportunity. And all of a sudden, Kevin Stenlund is being used in some similar ways to how Rick Bowness used Radek Faksa with the Dallas Stars. I mean, Faksa is a huge difference. I mean, this is a first-round pick versus a guy who's, Stenlund, I think, is a second or third rounder. But, opportunity knocking, he wants someone to steal, or you want someone to go out and grab the reins. And that's what Stenlund's done, where some of the other guys around him haven't been able to really stack together a solid stretch of games, even though after having some glimpses.
Yeah, and while we're talking about Stenny on that line, we got to talk about the other Swede that's rolling with him, and Axel Jonsson-Fjällby. And I don't know, maybe you can remind me, when was it? How long ago was it that he was sat out for a game and was in the press box? It seems to me like it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, in that range.
I think he's played a few of his best games as a Winnipeg Jet over the course of this past week. I thought he was great in that Washington game. Obviously, the team didn't get a result, and he was everywhere there last night, Ken. And when you've got a guy flying like Fjällby is, with the ability to forecheck and get on those loose pucks and retrieve them, and Stenlund, who's playing a pretty solid two-way game, I guess it just goes back to the point where I think, like, I don't know if those guys weren't playing the way they were, whether Rick Bowness would have had the confidence to even entertain the opportunity to maybe move Adam Lowry with Mark Scheifele and see how that looked. But it's a big credit to them. And you're exactly right. I mean, when guys do start getting healthy again, where's David Gustafsson? Mikey Esimont? Listen, I think Hark's been really good in whatever role that he has been given right now, and I think he's probably in the mix going forward. But I mean, to me, Kevin Stenlund has jumped a few guys on that depth chart, and I think it's pretty clear the way Rick Bowness has been playing him that I think that's the thought of the head coach as well.
Yeah, for sure. And he has that right-handed skill set. I mean, Rick Bowness touched on this yesterday when they talked about Christian Reichel's promotion, right? I mean, here's a right shot guy who is strong along the boards, and it's not a skill that a lot of the fan base looks to. And when on the exit pass, can you chip it past the defenseman that's lumbering down at you? I mean, that's not one of the skills that ends up on the back of the hockey card, but sometimes it's an important thing, especially when that's a place where turnovers at the offense or the defensive blue line can translate into chaos and goals against. So Stenlund, I loved what he's done on a lot of levels. And back to Jonsson-Fjällby, hey, this is a guy who's been standing at attention. I mean, if you get healthy, he went from basically starting the previous game on the top line with Dubois and Connor to going down to the fourth line to being a healthy scratch. So that's going to catch a player's attention, especially when he doesn't have, 100 NHL games in his resume. He's come back and done a nice job. I think he'd been scratched maybe one other time since, but I'm with you. I mean, he makes things happen out there. I mean, is he a natural finisher? Absolutely not. But he gets the chances, right? I mean, same as Carson Kuhlman. I mean, a lot of people are up in arms. And again, is he miscast as a right winger with Mark Scheifele at times? Sure, but at least he's getting to the spots, right? I mean, if Carson Kuhlman wasn't getting those opportunities that lead people to say, oh, well, he doesn't finish well enough. Well, that's different from not getting any chances whatsoever. So
Hey, you know what? Speaking of Kuhlman, I mean, were you surprised that it was Reichel that was the call-up?
Not
I'll
really.
be honest,
no,
Ken. I thought that the way Jeff Malott had been playing and the way he had been scoring,
Yep.
that might have been an interesting guy to call up and give the Carson Kuhlman treatment. Listen, you've been scoring goals. All right, boom. You're gonna we've got a need right now. Let's see how you look either on line 1 or line 2 with either Dubois or Scheifele. Because he's certainly been earning it, and in a lot of ways, I was sort of getting vibes of what Jansen Harkins did when he got sent down. And Malott's been called up before. I mean, I certainly think that he would be in the mix. But it was Reichel that got the call up.
Yeah, for me, Huss, it's more like this. So if you're not going to bother playing Jeff Malott, unless you're doing what you just exactly said, unless you're inserting Malott for a Kuhlman and putting him in an offensive zone situation, I say play Jeff Malott a game or two more with the Moose and then maybe call him up for that homestand, the 3-game homestand after the new year. Much like Reichel, those guys hadn't skated for 5 days. So, yeah, I mean, Malott's playing well. But like I said before, Malott has played some offside in his career, but Rick Bowness is just, watching Jansen Harkins and Michael Asimont have to play on their offsides. And now he's like, just give me a right-hander, right? I think that's basically what he was looking at, Huss. But I do think Jeff Malott is certainly playing well enough to get an opportunity here in the new year. Whether it's in the next week or two, that I'm not sure of. But I think it definitely will. He will in the next man up mentality. He will be the next man who gets an opportunity, especially if the Jets get back to having difficulty producing offensively, especially at 5-on-5, because that's a strength of Malott's. The biggest difference, people will say, oh, well, this or that. But I mean, Malott doesn't skate as well as Kuhlman. He is a more natural finisher, yes, but he doesn't skate as well as Kuhlman. He's, in terms of maybe what you produce on the forecheck or the creating the chaos or, the defensive responsibilities, maybe that's where they're leaning on the other side of things. But I do think that he is around the corner for a call-up, and, I wouldn't be surprised if he came up here and took advantage because, he's another guy like Asimont who knows that if there's opportunity, you want to grab it before it's too late because, like we've been talking about, it's not going to be all that long down the road before some of these guys are going to start to trickle back. And all of a sudden, when there's 7 guys out of the lineup, and yes, we know that most of them are multiple weeks away, but if 1 or 2 of those guys is back in a week, now the opportunities are not quite as prevalent as they are currently. So, I mean, I think that's why we talk about competition all year long, Huss. The competition is in full flight, and it's in full flight both up front and on the back end. And I mean, as you touched on with Murat just before I came on, I mean, Hainel, after sitting out, that's the response that Ville Heinola needed to have yesterday.
Was that his best game as a Jet, or since when?
I don't know. I think maybe get caught up in recency bias. I mean, I would say it was his most efficient game for sure, Huss. I think he played with more confidence maybe today than he had in the previous games. And it's easy to, I mean, the more you play, the more confidence you're going to have, right? I mean, it's very chicken and egg. But to me, was he outstanding? Not necessarily, but he didn't make a lot of, he didn't make, I don't think really any blunders, maybe 1 or 2 minor errors. I thought he was very confident. I love the reads that he made. I mean, he was closing quickly, getting to the pucks and his retrievals. I mean, his zone exits are always strong. And I do agree. I mean, he helped stabilize Dylan Sandberger after a tough start. And then late in the game, he's out in the ice protecting the lead with Dylan DeMello. I mean, that's when a coach shows confidence in a young player, often that young player responds.
I think he earned it. I don't think that was the coach just saying, oh, well, listen, I mean, we spent a lot of time talking about Ville. He's a guy, fair or unfair. I spent a lot of time watching just because I know it's going to be brought up in this program. I know there's going to be people talking about it. I actually thought he was really good last night. Like, not just, hey, not making any mistakes. I mean, I thought he contributed in the offensive zone. And I mean, Ken, there was a few times where he took the puck in, dumped it in, and was the guy behind the net dumping on the puck and, getting it to somebody else. I mean, a lot of the things that he does well, he did very well last night, in my opinion.
No, agreed. I mean, I don't. I think that his ceiling is so high that I think that needs to be his baseline, Huss. I mean, I do agree with you. I think it was his best game, but I think there's more. His ceiling is higher, right? In terms of, but that was a great first step. Like I used the words incremental growth yesterday. If that's the way that Ville Heinola plays as his standard game, and we know he has more offense, whether that's on a power play scenario or joining the rush as the second wave with the RD or coming mentality from Rick Bowness, there's more offense that can come. But I thought he was very solid in his shifts. And, it's a humongous boost for him to be on the ice. And we know, of course, we can't ignore the fact that he's out on the ice late with Dylan DeMello because Josh Morrissey's not available to the Jets. So what do you want? You want a puck mover, a guy that can help get the puck going north. So that's why he's out there. And I agree. He deserved to be out there. And now he's got to build on that. You can't just say, hey, I played a strong game. Now I can go back into cruise control mode. And I'm not saying he ever felt that way, but he's being pushed. And like I said this before, Huss, to you, I would have preferred him to stay in the lineup. And that's not a knock on Kyle Capobianco, but I don't know that he necessarily did anything to have himself removed from the lineup in the game against the Wild. I know the Wild are a physical team, but that's also chicken and egg. I think a guy like Hanela was important against the Wild because they didn't move the puck as efficiently on their breakouts and zone exits and things like that. So to me, Hanela responded in an excellent manner, and that's how he's got to play. And there are more layers to Ville Hanela's game, but if he plays that way in terms of his reads and defensive play and being aggressive, the coaching staff is going to have no choice but to leave him in there.
Kenny, there was a bit of interesting news outside of the game yesterday and the trip to Edmonton. Danny Zhilkin gets a 3-year ELC with the Winnipeg Jets. He was a third rounder last year. Interesting. He represented Canada internationally, born in Russia, starring with the Guelph Storm right now. I'm surprised that this happened. And I did read something interesting that by getting it done before January 1st, they can have the contract slide 2 years. Just fill us in and thoughts on Zhilkin and what Jets fans that aren't familiar with him should know.
Yeah, I saw that on the Twitter machine as well, Huss. That may be one of the benefits to getting it done earlier and rather than waiting until January here for sure. Zhilkin's having a great year for the Guelph Storm. He's been over a point a game player. He's a guy who has some offensive ability. We know that he's he's a strong guy. I think he moves pretty well. I liked what we saw from him at the training camp level. This is a guy who's a couple of years away, obviously, but I mean, the Jets basically gave them an extra chance if you have to leave them in the minors a little bit longer, it won't hurt them in terms of the ELC. And that's important because of us, what we know about their expiring contract situation without having extensions. So it's a smart piece of business. And in terms of Zhilkin, we know he's excited. He was at the game in Boston. He was posting about it on the old Twitter machine and on Instagram. So he looks very eager and excited. This is not a guy who's going to be, at the end of the year, he's not going to be called up to the Winnipeg Jets or anything like that. But I mean, is it possible he could go on an ATO, or I guess you wouldn't have to be in an ATO. Could he join the Moose at the end of the year? It's certainly possible to get him a little taste of the pro hockey activity. But he's a guy that the Jets are high on. Good two-way center, strong guy, offensively gifted, and he's a guy that will be part of their future plans. That next wave of guys, no matter when that wave rolls in. But guys like Chaz Lucius and Brad Lambert and Rutger McGorty and some of those guys that are at the World Junior here. But he's a guy. His story was incredible. Huss. I mean, moved from Russia at a very young age, been in Canada for a while here, and just from talking to him at the draft, he was a guy who just oozes passion. We've seen that from a lot of the Jets draft picks, but he was another guy who, very well spoken, and it's would be his second language, but he did a great job. He was very fired up, and you can tell that he's a guy who's trying to build on what his experience with the Jets was. And, he's a guy that down the road, I expect Danny Zhilkin to be a member of the Winnipeg Jets, but I'm thinking more of the, 3-ish years down the road here. But, if it could be earlier, I mean, this is a guy who's had to scrap and claw for everything in his life. So would it surprise me if he made it a little bit earlier? No, but I mean, I think if we're looking at the path, it's probably 2 to 3 years away before he's on the radar for recalls and things like that. But he's having a great year, and it was a, smart little pice of business here by the Jets.
Hey, speaking of Jets prospects and draft picks, have you watched much of the World Juniors? And what are you hearing about the Jets property out at the tournament in Halley?
Yeah, Huss, I haven't watched a whole lot of that, actually, to be quite frank. I will certainly be checking out the as we get closer to the medal round games here. But
you don't like 11-0 blowouts, or it's not keeping your attention?
There's been a lot of activities rolling around here of late, but I've been following their progress from the prospect watchers, guys like Scotty Wheeler and Chris Peters and those guys, and obviously
It's crazy the
if
hype that this draft class is getting right now. And listen, it's led by Connor Bedard, who's doing some things that
just crazy.
this tournament has never seen before. And again, like I always have a hard time putting too much into these shit kickings of Germany's and Austria's and whatnot, but it's pretty clear that this is, I mean, I know the term generational player is used probably far too often that it's fair. I think this guy is the real deal.
Oh, Huss, I mean, John Paddock told me, I've seen John up at Clear Lake, in the summertime, and he was telling me at 15 years old that Connor Bedard had an NHL shot. I apologize if I've told the story before with you, but I respect John a great deal. He is a guy who I've covered for a long, long time, and I was like, wow, at 15, he has an NHL shot. Like that's quite something. And I mean, this guy coached a lot of elite players. So it was like, wow. I mean, if John thinks he's got an NHL shot already, well, you better take notice. And as it turns out, he's got an NHL shot. There's no doubt about that. He spoke so highly of the kid and the way he was raised and all of those things. And so it's not a surprise to see what he's doing. It's funny. I mean, much like with Shane Wright, Huss, I mean, last year, Bedard isn't having this great start. Well, all of a sudden, his look at the numbers at the end of the year. He's just exceptional. So, and even Adam Fantilli, right? I mean, here's a guy who, another high end draft prospect here. So I think it's a great class for sure. The folks in the old tankathon they feel like they're going to be pretty happy, but there's going to be a lot of
the tankathon is just getting going right now. Like
exactly,
like it already was in full swing. I think we're going to see some teams floor it to the bottom when we get to the beginning of 2023 right now because of some of this talent that's going to be available for teams at the top of the draft.
Yeah, and there's going to be a record for lucky charms that are being held at the draft lottery when the ping pong balls are flying around us. There's going to be a record for lucky charms and all of those things. But
someone should draft Daryl Cates' son just to get him up there because they seem to always get the number one pick. We saw him every year. We saw the young man grow through the years on the podium with the number one pick overall year after year after year.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And just one other quick one. I mean, obviously, a lot of people have been talking about the Wrecker McGroarty, between the legs pass yesterday, and Lucius had a couple nice goals. And another guy too. I mean, Fabian Wagner's a guy who's having a nice tournament, nice little tournament here for a guy who started on the fourth line for Sweden as well. So, Jets prospects looking solid, but it's just a little path, a little part of the road here for sure. I know a lot of people up in arms. Lambert had already had a little bit of ice time reduction at times, which is a little bit unfortunate. So, but also it'll be super interesting to see. And I mean, this hasn't been talked about a whole lot, but we know it's an option. But coming out of the tournament, will Lucius and Lambert be headed back to the Manitoba Moose, or will they consider sending him to the Western Hockey League, respectively to the Portland Winterhawks and Seattle Thunderbirds, both of whom have high hopes of making a Memorial Cup run? I don't think this is something I don't know that an internal decision has already been made. I mean, I expect them to be back with the Manitoba Moose, but that's what I would say. I don't think they've closed the door completely on the Western Hockey League element. A lot of things go into these decisions, whether it's talking with the player and the player's representation, and ultimately what the Jets decide would be best for the development of those two guys. But that'll be a storyline that we'll be monitoring going into the new year, because it'll be interesting. I mean, we know that the Moose don't have an abundance of skill up front. They got a lot of solid players, but they don't have a lot of young skills. So, I mean, there'd be some temptation to having those guys back, but there also might be some temptation to having those guys play a little bit more of a, enhanced role on a team against their peers. So we know Lambert has played a lot of pro hockey in Finland leading up to his draft year, but the offensive success just hasn't come quite as easily at the American Hockey League level right now for either player. We know Lucius had some injury concerns, but I'll be curious to see if one or both are back with the Manitoba Moose, and what goes into that final decision will be fascinating to see.
Interesting stuff. Ken Wiebe, great hit as always. Just before we leave, you mentioned heading into the new year. Are Winnipeg sports fans going to be popping bottles with Kenny and Rennie tomorrow as we get into the new year? New Year's Eve, late night, first active business of 2023, KNR?
The active first order of business for 2023 is only going to be happening at around noon on the Monday, I believe, or Sunday. So there will not be a live show.
Night?
No. We're giving folks the night off.
What?
Yeah, we're giving folks the night off.
I got to
We'll be doing
completely rearrange my New Year's Eve now. Great. I'm glad I asked.
I apologize, Huss. We didn't want people to feel obligated to join us, so we're hoping they'll be obligated to join us the afternoon after, maybe after they've had a little bit of a nap, maybe a couple glasses of water, maybe an odd Advil or two. But yeah, I don't. I'll be up. Huss, I will be committed. I'll be covering the game and writing off the game. But
it's probably that Diva Reynolds, right?
Well, I don't want to lay any blame, but I don't want to be laying any blame. But one of us is covering. Hang on, one of us is covering the game, and yeah, Sean will be watching the game too. But there's some family commitments. Let's go with this. There's some family commitments on both ends that will prohibit a show from happening until the following day. We apologize for this inconvenience. Much like a lot of the customer service folks out there, we apologize for any inconvenience this may cause, and hope that you join
Kenny
us
and Rennie, the sun wing of Winnipeg media, not there, not there when we need it.
We let them know in advance, Huss, and amidst all of the joy, I just want to also, I know a lot of people have been weighing in here, and R.I.P. to Bob Doc Holliday. Tough one to lose this week. I worked with Bob at the Winnipeg Sun, and a guy I got to know pretty well over the years, and just a gem of a human being. Absolute beauty, whether it was his work in the Sun or work behind the scenes. He worked on a lot of boards, and obviously both you and I got to know him through his wrestling promotion stuff as well. He set up a couple of fun interviews over the years when I like to dabble in the WWF and WWE areas as well, with some features, and just an all-time great human, and he's going to be missed by a lot of people.
He had the best line in that Slam Wrestling obituary when asked about Winnipeg. He says, "Winnipeg is small C conservative and capital C cheap," and that was an absolute beautiful way. By the way, shout out to you. You finish off with a veiled shot at Rennie, not laying out any blame. And then my favorite part of last night's show was when you said, I'm not one to pump my own tires, and then proceeded to go and pump up your own tires. So listen, it's just a great way to finish out 2022, Bal. Listen, all the best to you and Sean. So just a heads up. So when are you guys planning on doing that? On the Sunday or on the actual, on the Monday?
Sorry, no, we will do it the day after the game. So that my calendar is a little bit off. So it will be New Year's Day around lunchish hour. For those folks that are following on the old YouTube, you'll get the alert. But we're hoping between 12 and 1 we'll go live.
Yeah, another reason to turn on those notifications, folks, both on our channel and Kenny and Rennie. So, well, listen, all the best to you. Thanks for everything this year, and I can't wait to do it again with you next week and in the new year. And a big week with the Flames and Lightning coming to town. We'll have lots to talk about. All the best, Wiebe. Thanks for doing this.
You as well, Huss. Great to be with you. A happy New Year to all the patrons of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Also to Hacksaw as he rolls in. And Huss, cross your fingers for me. I'm in the old fantasy final here this week.
Yes.
I'm gonna do my best to bring home I don't think I'll have a belt in time for next Friday's hit, but let's see if we can bring something home here.
Well, we're both in one, so we'll see how.
Good luck to you as well, my man. I'll be rooting on you as well.
Let's make it happen. All right, take care, pal. There's Ken Wiebe. Again, there you have hot breaking news. KNR delayed into New Year's Day in and around noon. But I know I'll be watching it. It'll be actually a great way to get in, have the NFL on. We'll throw the audio on KNR and chop it up after the final game of 2022. Yes. Hacksaw Hamilton is coming up in just a moment, but I do, for one more time in 2022, have to give a big thank you from Winnipeg Sports Talk to our friends at Princess Auto, doing so many things in our community, supporting the Bombers the way they do, powering our great curling teams, including Team Carruthers and Team Jennifer Jones, and of course, Winnipeg Sports Talk as well. And Princess Auto is where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. 2 Winnipeg locations, and of course, national headquarters right here in Winnipeg is a Winnipeg company, but you can see them at Panet Road or at Portage Avenue West. And of course, you can shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. Our friends at Culligan Water getting ready for a big 2023, but they've done this before. They're celebrating over 65 years in the business, serving Winnipeggers and Manitobans. And they've got it all for your water needs. Water softeners, filters, bottled water coolers, whole home systems, drinking water systems, and citywide water delivery services, and commercial and industrial water products and solutions. Pop down and see the gang at Culligan in person at 1200 Sargent Avenue. You can give them a call at 204-694-5180 or check out all their products and services for you and your family online at drinkculligan.com. And hey, before we ring in the new year, I know many of you might be taking a trip to Manitoba Liquor Marts. When you do, make sure you make the right choice of Canada's favorite Canadian whiskey, the legendary Canadian Club, proud sponsors of Winnipeg Sports Talk, and of course, the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And speaking of the Bombers, keep an eye out for those Jim Beam displays at the top 20 Manitoba Liquor Marts. If you buy Jim Beam, you'll get a Bomber collector glass for free, featuring either Zach Caleros, Adam Bighill, or Nick Dembski. Big Happy New Year to all of our friends at Beam Suntory. And a reminder, folks, do not drink and drive at any point, but especially coming up on New Year's weekend. All right, one more time. We're saving the best for last. Our final official guest of 2022 before our final act of 2022, and that's giving away those Bomber tickets from Consolidated Supply with their Marble Race. We have one more NFL notebook, and things are getting interesting as we bring in Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. Lee, I hope you had a great Christmas and a Happy New Year to you.
Hustler, how are you? Yeah, it's been a strange Christmas here. Thank you, Southwest Airlines, Alaska Airlines, and all that. We had Christmas dinner at 10 o'clock last night. We opened the presents at 11 o'clock. Neither of my kids could get here because of ice and snow and cold and whole thing Southwest Airlines. So it was the strangest Christmas I've ever had, but they were in and out of here pretty quickly, and they finally got here from Oregon and from the Grand Canyon. So it took a while, but we got it done.
Well, I mean, geez, that's horrible in a number of reasons. First of all, you didn't get the family to gather around the television and watch the Denver Broncos melt down on Christmas Day. I mean, you knew it was going to happen with Nathaniel Hackett at some point, but that sort of sped up the process. And I got to say, I mean, the reclamation of Baker Mayfield under Sean McVay in the LA with the Rams has been phenomenal. But let's start off in Denver, because that is a fiasco that we have not seen at a level in the National Football League in a long, long time.
Andrew, you and I have talked about this multiple times, and this all started back in the first week of September. You know, there were questions about game management and play calling and use of the clock and timeouts taken and why nothing seemed to fit. At the end of the day, he was overmatched, and I was shocked because he had done a good job in Green Bay. And, of course, his father was a legendary offensive coordinator with the Kansas City Chiefs and a head coach at USC and all that. And he seemed like the right guy, but he just never got hold of the franchise. And I think the whole thing really bottomed out. And there's lots of layers as to why Denver's had a rotten season. But this bottomed out because it looked like the players quit on him last week against the Rams. And that's the worst thing you can say about a head coach, is how their players reacted to his leadership or lack of leadership. Russell Wilson doesn't look like the same quarterback. It's almost as if he woke up an old man. I think he's been playing hurt with a shoulder, but it's complicated because the other layers include you lose your star left tackle, you lose your right tackle, you lose your center. None of the three gifted young wide receivers, the Cortland Suttons, the Jerry Judys, the KJ Hamler, they've been on the field at the same time because every one of them's had nagging injuries. They traded the tight end and a couple of other players to Seattle to get Wilson. So that's an issue. But I'll tell you what, by the time they cleaned house, because they fired the head coach, they fired two other assistant coaches, and they're going to blow the whole staff out once we get to the finish line this season. But the guy that made all the decisions is still there, George Paton, the general manager. He's the one that handpicked Hackett. No accountability there. He gave him a 5-year contract. They owe him 4 years on that deal. He's the one that scoped out, traded for Russell Wilson, and then signed him to the huge extension. They got 4 more years there. He's the one that doesn't have a number 1 draft pick this coming season because of what they did in the Russell Wilson trade. He traded away 3 other starters to Seattle, and Paton still has his job as a general manager of the team and still seems to have a vote of confidence from the Walmart ownership group. So just weird. And they got a long way to come back, but it was devastating. I mean, when they lost Javonte Williams, the power running back, and then they blew out Melvin Gordon, the other running back, this thing just seemed to dovetail. It was one problem after another. So they got a lot of work to get done, and they're on the hook for an awful lot of money for Russell Wilson. Everybody's saying the right things. I think we're going to get to the end of the season, and somebody's going to publicly confirm Wilson's been hurt all year.
Well, they're going to hopefully they get a much better version of Russell Wilson. Although, as someone with a rooting interest for another team in the AFC West, I'll be honest, I am somewhat loving every minute of it. And speaking of that division, there was all the high hopes for all of those teams going in. The Broncos have bottomed out, and the Seahawks are going to probably be picking third overall with the Broncos pick. And then there's the Raiders. Lee, I'll be honest, I'm stunned at the way Derek Carr is being treated by the Raiders for a guy that has done so much for one of the most dysfunctional franchises in all of sports. And yet, I think they're just proving that. And maybe Josh McDaniel was the perfect choice for a Raider head coach, because it sounds like he's contributing to the dysfunction as much of any of the guys that came before him.
Well, he inherited a mess. So did Dave Ziegler, the general manager who came with him from New England. I think it's a mess at the top of the organizational chart. I think there's huge questions about the ability of Mark Davis to run a business, much less a pro football franchise. He's not his father. That's for certain in terms of acquisitions. They always seem to go out on the street corner every offseason and buy the shiny new object. And this is going to change everything. And it's never changed anything. They haven't drafted well. Virtually all the picks that John Gruden, Davis's choice as coach and general manager, all the picks from the Gruden era are gone for a wide variety of reasons, from drunk driving to guns to just injuries, etc. So they've changed the defense 3 times in about 5 years. They blew out a ton of players because of salary cap situations, and now they do this to Derek Carr. Now, that being said, it's hard to gauge where Derek Carr is on the ladder of real good NFL quarterbacks. Got a name, 3,000-yard passing seasons, but Hustler, his career record is 60-89, and he had just regressed and played really poorly. The last 5 games, his quarterback rating had dropped. His quarterback rating was 86, and he was completing only 52% of his passes. And he was throwing balls into coverage. You say, this is not a rookie. Why is a 7 or 8 or 9 year veteran lobbing balls into double and triple coverage, and they keep getting picked off? He threw 9 interceptions in the last 5 games. So he's just not playing real well, and what around him's not playing well. And yet they got Devontae Adams, and they got Josh Jacobs, and they got a really good Pro Bowl off tackle in Colton Miller. But it's just, to me, it's a really dysfunctional organization. And the fact that they removed him to put a journeyman, Jarrett Stidham, who's never ever really played in the NFL, in last 2 weeks, to me is kind of strange. Now, they can move him. They'll move him in the offseason possibly, but
where to do you think?
He's got 3 years left on his contract. 3 years, big money. We're starting at $42 million next season. I think the Washington Commanders, front and center. Now, are they going to get multiple number ones? No, maybe they'll get one number one, but I think Derek Carr can still play. Maybe he just needs to be in a better set of circumstances. But the way he's played recently, he doesn't look right to me, and I don't understand the decision making that's going on there. I would say Washington probably number one. I don't know about Houston. Houston's that's a disaster of a franchise, but they don't have a quarterback. Period.
They're going to be on the clock. They're going to be on the clock. I'd imagine they'll be picking one at number 1 overall, trying to get that quarterback of the future. Interesting team to me is the Jets. I mean, for all intents and purposes, I think Zach Wilson is done with the Winnipeg Jets. He's not even going to be active for these games, and that's not a good sign for a number 2 overall pick. Mike White's there, but is he the guy in the future? They have such a good roster.
Good yards. Mike White has really competed. He's a kid came out of small college football out of Western Kentucky, but boy, he throws the ball all over the place. He's brazen. He's bold. So I'm not sure that the Jets are going to give up on Mike White. And they're on the hook for a contract for a couple more years with Zach Wilson, and maybe it's too early to hit the eject button on him. He's just got to grow into the position. But I think there's teams out there will make a move for Derek Carr. But then what happens? What happens with the Raiders? I don't think Stidham's the guy. Yeah, I mean, Stidham was a game manager when he played in the Southeastern Conference. He was not a superstar. So
maybe McDaniels can get Tebow to come out of retirement.
Well, do you think McDaniels? Tom Brady? I mean, that's the rumor out here in the West. Tom Brady will exit Tampa and link up with that guy. Of course, there's also a rumor that Tom Brady will exit Tampa and go back to Foxborough to link up with Belichick, who, by the way, has got a lot of quarterback problems too. Since Brady changed his mailing address, Belichick is 24-25. And you look at that team's not doing well. And I use the word accountability as it relates to some of the people around the league making decisions. Is Robert Kraft going to wake up one morning and look at Belichick and say, accountability to you, what have you allowed the franchise to become? Because his drafts have not been good. And Mac Jones, the quarterback of the future, he looks like he's regressed. And there's an attitude issue with him. And Belichick's got player personnel problems, he's got a quarterback problem, and he's got an assistant coach problem with the guy he handpicked to call the plays. So very restless offseason coming in a bunch of different places around the league.
No doubt about it. Hey, Lee, before we go, really sad news about Tua. Another concussion. Have we seen the end of Tua for this season in the National Football League, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Andrew, there's a story here that I don't think has really gotten out yet. There's a lot of criticism of the NFL. He hit his head in the second quarter of that Miami game, but he showed no signs of a concussion. So they didn't pull him off. And the eye in the sky booth guy with the NFL did not view him as being injured. And after the game, he seemed okay, but he came back in Monday. And listen to this angle. I don't know if you've gotten wind of this. They have on Mondays in Miami, they have a head coach, coordinator, quarterback meeting in which they review the video and the play. And Mike McDaniels questions Tua about what was your pre-snap read? Why did you go there with the ball and it got picked off, etc. Tua couldn't answer the questions. He could not process on Monday morning the questions McDaniel was making. McDaniel took him out of the quarterback meeting room, took him to his office, called the team doctors, and said, I need you to come down and get him. I think, head coach Mike McDaniels thinks he needs to be in concussion protocol. So Tua is sitting in that room and he's not processing information. The thing that alarms me is he's not telling anybody that he's not right. And so the question is, does he keep himself on the field when he was not right? League takes a lot of hits for maybe not doing as good a job looking at these guys who take these violent hits in games. I think the league has made huge upgrades this year alone, in part because of the first Tua injury, to try to analyze the players. But the players got to be honest, too, with the head coach. I'm not right. I don't feel right. And for Mike McDaniel to stop the quarterback meeting because Tua could not converse with him about what he saw in the video pre-snap read, that's pretty scary stuff.
No, it really, really is. Lee Hacksaw Hamilton's with us. Lee, before we go, tons of interesting games on the weekend, but we've got the main event on Monday night. Got to ask your thoughts on the Bills and Bengals going at it on Monday Night Football with a lot on the line and a very interesting Chiefs team that'll be playing the Broncos on Sunday, probably pulling for Burrow and the Bengals in a big way.
Well, that Cincinnati-Buffalo game impacts a whole bunch of other games because it means somebody's going through Buffalo. Buffalo, nice snow, eh? Buffalo and Cincinnati in cold weather. There's something different about the Bills right now, and I can't be critical. Geez, they got 12 wins. They don't look to be as high-powered and dangerous as they were the first half of the season or all of last year. But at the end of the day, they're still getting big plays. In fact, they're getting more big running plays from those two running backs than they were earlier in the season. So that's a positive. And you got Diggs and you got the tight end and you got Gabriel Davis is catching a ton of balls. So Buffalo is so dangerous and their defense is so good. That being said, Cincinnati is 11-1 in their last 12. And Joe Burrow is about to crack 5,000 yards passing. And the Bengals are just playing with peak efficiency right now. If this game were in Buffalo, I'd say bring your snow shovel and then enjoy the game. And the Bengals might be in trouble, but because the suckers in Cincinnati, the Queen City fans are just going to be crazy. And Burrow at home just plays like his hair is on fire. It's as marquee a game. Hell, it's like a playoff game it'd be like the AFC Championship game. So it's going to be good. And in terms of Kansas City, you and I talked about this the first week of September. I asked the question, what would life be like after Tyreek Hill? Well, life is 420 yards per game with Patrick Mahomes, and he's throwing to all these different guys. And Tyreek is in Miami and has done great things this season, but Kansas City just keeps on going. And, Mahomes has got 37 touchdowns. He's going to crack the 5,000-yard mark with 2 games to go in the season. So Kansas City, Buffalo, Cincinnati, pretty damn good. And out here, they're going crazy with the Chargers because they're suddenly healthy and they're playing much better with the quarterback Justin Herbert. But as I've said out here, and I always do the cup is half empty or half full, the Chargers have beaten only one club with a winning record. Thank good they've played a lot of bad teams, but they're going to be in the playoffs with 9 wins. But the quarterback is great. I don't think the rest of the team is great. Cincinnati and Buffalo and Kansas City got great quarterbacks and great teams around those great quarterbacks.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Chargers not going to be an easy out for any of those teams, though. I mean, I think if they are healthy, I mean, what will we get from them? We don't know, but they certainly are capable of some big things. Lee, on behalf of everyone at Winnipeg Sports Talk and all of our listeners, thank you for everything. It's one of our favorite times of the entire week throughout. And of course, I know there's a lot of regulars reading LeeHacksawHamilton.com and people enjoying the new YouTube shows and the podcast. So congratulations on a great 2022. It's amazing. You just keep on cranking out the best content and certainly are one of our favorites here on WST. We can't thank you enough.
Who would have thought when I was a young broadcaster standing in the corner of Portage in Maine, the windiest street corner in North America, when I was doing Cleveland Crusaders in the World Hockey Association, who would have thought a few slap shots ago you and I would be doing sports talk in Winnipeg in 2022? But appreciate the opportunity to do this. Love being on the show and invite all your Winnipeg sports fans to sample the stuff that I do here in Southern California on my website and on my podcast.
All the best, Lee. Have a great time with the family heading into the new year, and we'll look forward to talking to you next week in 2023, heading into the final week of the regular season. All the best.
My pleasure. Happy holiday. Thanks, Andrew.
Good stuff. There it is. The man himself, Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. Of course, check the website out, LeeHacksawHamilton.com, and search on YouTube as well. Give Lee a sub and check out what he's cranking out all the time with some of the best experience and great takes, as always, when he joins us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. All right. A big happy new year to our friends at Nick and Nikki DQ. Nick and Nikki, I mean, you folks know, the incredible support we've had from them since before we even did one show here on Winnipeg Sports Talk, that they've been there for us and are still here for us and here for you with 4 locations in Winnipeg and Southern Manitoba. DQ Niverville, DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, and DQ St. Anne's. And I can tell you, the cake for the DQ ice cream cake for Christmas was a big hit. I'm very intrigued on the Blizzard cakes. I have not tried one of those yet, but that will be certainly coming up in 2023. But as I said, the stack burger, the 2-cheese bacon stack burger, one of the elites in the entire fast food game. Chicken fingers, fries, and more. Pop down and see them. Tell them the boys at Winnipeg Sports Talk sent you. And of course, you can also check out Nick and Nikki DQ on delivery apps as well if you do live in the area. And hey, with New Year's Eve coming tomorrow, I know many of you will be hitting the vendor or the beer store, as some people call it in other spots. Make sure to check out the best of Winnipeg's local beers, and that, of course, is Little Brown Jug. Now, if you have the opportunity, pop by the brewery and tap room. You can try them all out for yourself, but get your favorites. Check out the great merchandise. And by the way, they are, if you're looking for a big party for New Year's Eve, I know Little Brown Jug's having a big bash. They always do it up right. You can check out their Twitter feed or Instagram for more details on that. But the bottom line is, bring in 2023 with the best in Winnipeg's local beer, the iconic Little Brown Jug. Thanks to Kevin and the great staff over there, Rebecca, for their great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. And do it safely, do it responsibly, but nothing better to crack a cold one in than 1919 and Little Brown Jug. All right, let's get Michael Remis back in here. The clock is ticking on 2022 here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. We have the grand finale of the Marbles Tournament of Champions coming up in a few minutes. I will get to the Cool Bet lines as we prepare that. But, Remo, before we get to all of that, I think we should quickly run over the top 10 WST live shows of 2022.
Yeah, it's fun to look back, and we don't really do that enough. We're always looking forward, talking about today, but it is 2022, and I do see a lot of people writing their favorite quotes. I think Bailey wrote the best Jets quote of 2022 was Pierre-Luc Dubois saying, "I don't even know what I'm having for dinner." That was pretty good. I do like Rick Bonus saying he wasn't a babysitter. Oh, T. Conapoli, thank you
T.
for the super.
Conapoli, thanks for the super chat, boss. Really appreciate the support. Good luck in the marble race. Getting you some good karma heading into our big grand finale in a few minutes.
T-Bone looking for a marble bump, too. He had a super chat, and Mike Allison coaching did as well. So
awesome. Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate that.
We really appreciate those. So and I'm trying to think, like Paul Stasny's press conference at the end of the season. Last year was an all-timer, but as far as the top shows, Pierre-Luc Dubois was the focused on a lot of those. I'm looking over our streams with the best numbers.
Let's go the honorable mentions first. These ones didn't crack the top 10.
Okay, Rick Bonus announced as head coach. Rick
Bones joining us on the show.
Yeah, that was a big one. Mark Scheifele with Sarah that day was a big one.
Scheifele speaks. Yes, going into the Manitoba Open out at Southwood. Sarah's first act as an employee of the Winnipeg Jets, if you recall correctly.
Yeah. iHeart Gaming says super bump for marbles. Why didn't I know that was a thing? That's a joke. It's random. It's random. iHeart. It's random. Thank you, Evan Hunter.
Karma. It's karma. iHeart.
Yeah, it's karma points.
Evan Hunter with the super chat. Evan, thank you very much, man. Greatly appreciated.
Dubois accepting his qualifying offer. After the NHL draft, we recapped their selection of Rutger McGroarty. This was the show we were live at Little Brown Jug where it was announced Barry Trotz would not jump into coaching.
Oh, yeah. That was, I forgot about that. That was a moment where we found out. I think Mike was on with me at the time, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. It was.
I think about the bad news, and of all places for us to be at Little Brown Jug after the amount of run we got on the beer stunt to give Barry free beer for life.
Yeah, and then I think
that was a big social media dub for WST. Though.
Yeah, I mean our July, we had a massive July, and so a lot of the shows that were in the top 10 were from July. It was just raging.
Let's count down from 10 to 1.
Okay, so number 10 was the Bombers win the Banjo Bowl and the Jets begin skating. That's September 12, 2022.
Exciting day that was. Obviously, Banjo Bowl. A lot of people fired up about the Bombers and then all the hype with the Jets to get on the ice.
Yeah, and then number 9, the Jets, it was announced they were going to begin the season without a captain. September 16, 2022.
That was the Friday of that day, Rick Bonus, and we, of course, went down there to hear from Rick. And and again, we'll kind of focus in on 2023, but it cannot be understated the way Blake Wheeler's handled that, the way he's handled himself this year, the contributions to the success of the team so far. And but that really was, in a lot of ways, the first act of Rick Bonus as the head coach, Remo, and I think it really sort of set the tone for training camp and the success that they've had as a team beginning that day on the 16th of September.
Yeah, and then number 8, this one is going to be there every year and always one of our biggest shows. NHL free agency live stream July 13, 2022. Jets didn't do much, but there were some big signings that day. But the day that the Jets did make a move was free agency day 2, July 14, 2022, where they signed David Rittich, who's been a pretty good backup. Yeah, Stanny. We should be talking more about
Stanny and the Jets.
Stanny. Was that the first day?
We all remember the tweet. I think it was actually the first day.
And we were kind of like
early.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Little did we know that Stanny would be 70% face-off guy.
I'm a card-carrying member of the Stenny fan club right now. I'm just saying it right now. Love Stenny. Love what he's doing right now. I think he's staying in the lineup for a while. Number 6.
Yes, this goes back to the very crazy May-June, where it was every day following the rumors. Apparently, June 30, we had the Jets head coach final. So the Super Chats are coming in hot here. Showed it to Scardy. Wrench Doozer, I see, with the 1919. We'll have to get to these.
Thanks, guys. Wrench Doozer, yes. Evan as well.
But yeah, I think it was Kevin Weeks who said these are the finalists. It was like Rick Tocchet and was it Jim Montgomery or someone else? But that was June 30, 2022, because on Canada Day, it was announced it was actually Rick Bowness, and we were off that day. I was at Winnipeg Beach with minimal
you were
internet.
at Winnipeg Beach. I was at Clear Lake on the golf course. The one time I've probably been out of cell range at any point in 2022, the exact moment that Rick Bowness was. And listen, this is a story that we've been talking about ever since. As disappointing as it was with the news about Barry Trotz, I mean, I don't even think with Barry Trotz or anyone else that the story that Rick Bowness has written would be as positive as it is right now heading into the new year. So pretty wild thinking back to that with such a big show. And then the shocking news the next day that Bones was the guy. Of course, 5 was the trade deadline live stream. Was that my Jordan Flu Game show? Or was that the year before?
Yes, you did 4 hours, I think. I think you did 4 hours.
At the height of raging COVID-19.
You were not doing well. Was Andrew Kopp traded on the deadline, or was it before? I'm getting all jumbled here. And then
Kopp Day.
Let's see. People want to know, are we going to do a regular hoodie, Marbles? People are asking. Are we going to do a pre-match for the regular hoodie?
No, it's almost, today, the final act of 2022 is the grand finale. And we will get, who knows, maybe we'll even kick things off on Tuesday with a hoodie. But I think we focus in, there's only one race today, and it is the culmination of the Tournament of Champions.
Okay.
July 6th, show number 4, was Blake Wheeler and Brendan Dillon trade rumors. And yes, the stoking fires of the trade talks certainly was like gas on the fire for WST.
Yeah, we were listening to like Elliot Friedman every day. I think he was doing a podcast. And, it was Wheeler rumored to be traded. Dillon was rumored, and everyone was here talking about it. And then number 3, July 19, Jets don't file for salary arbitration for Pierre-Luc Dubois. So that was a big one, and they ultimately didn't go, and he accepted the qualifying offer. Here. And this was where it started off. May 9, everyone was in here. Barry Trotz fired by the Islanders, and this chat was like speculating like crazy. The room was full. It was wild.
It did not take very long for Barry Trotz to become the apple of Winnipeg Jet fans' eyes, considering what had happened with the club that season. But the number one show of 2022, July 18th, 2022. Shout out to Pat Brisson. Shout out to PLD for cranking up the viewership to a record number on July 18th after the Dubois rumors got set off on fire after the comments of his agent in Montreal.
Yeah, that was... I've noticed our 2 biggest shows are when the Jets and Montreal fans intersect. It was either the Jake Evans hit was the previous year. I mean, that was wild. And this was pretty crazy too. We had Montreal fans, Jets fans. We had 1,000 live viewers for that show after all the rumors and speculation.
Bananas.
It was that was a really hot time. May, June, July. And you'd think a hockey show, our hot time would be when actual games are being played. But no, this Jets off season was one of the crazier ones. And I had a lot of fun every day trying to keep track of what was being reported and what was going to happen with the team. So
no doubt about it. Well, there you go. There's our top 10, and a shout out to Remo for compiling that. I know we've got a special theme from Tristan for today. But man, got to give a quick shout out to all these super chats. Travis, Happy New Year, WST. Travis, thank you for the support so much. A real banger from our guy Kabilis, one of the OGs of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Happy New Year, WST and WST Maniacs. You're the man, Kabilis. Always love seeing you in the chat. Ben Lawrence, guys, thank you very much, Ben. And donating some of my Sunwing refund to the boys. Happy New Year, everyone. That's unfortunate that you had to end up doing the doing a Sunwing refund.
Hey, at least you got a refund.
What an absolute disaster right now with all of that. Really feel for so many people that that got their holiday plans screwed. And listen, even worse for some of the people that, have been stranded and unable to come home. It has been a big, big mess. Anyways, thanks again for the super chats and the support, everyone. It means a lot to us, and we couldn't do it without you. And obviously, if you weren't here, there'd be no point to do it. So, listen, we really appreciate it, and it's not lost upon us the great support we get from you guys daily, especially as we get into a new year, a new exciting year for Winnipeg Sports Talk. All right, before we finish up the year and the marble race, let's quickly get to the cool bet lines. Can't get a line for tomorrow's Jet game, folks. Why? Because the Edmonton Oilers are in action tonight on the road against the Seattle Kraken. Edmonton, -111. Kraken, -106. Very close to a pick'em. The Panthers started off the post-Christmas portion of the schedule, putting up 7 on the Montreal Canadiens. Bit of a tougher run, though, tonight, going up against the Hurricanes, who have been one of the hottest teams in the National Hockey League over the past 4-6 weeks or so. Canes -164, Panthers +139, Pittsburgh Penguins -124, favorites against the New Jersey Devils, who are +106. In the other game tonight, the Anaheim Ducks at home against the Nashville Predators, Anaheim +140. And Nashville -166. We do have some great bowl games. I know Cabela's is going to be ready for those semifinals this weekend. TCU and Michigan. Michigan a 7.5-point favorite. Ohio State and Georgia in the other semi. Georgia a 6-point favorite. But this afternoon, the Barstool Sports Arizona Bowl in Tucson featuring Wyoming and Ohio. Curtis Rourke, brother of Nathan Rourke, leads Ohio into the game. Definitely going to check that out. And I believe 3-point spread, or if you want to take Ohio at 2.5, you can get it at -119. And as far as the NFL goes, Dusty's away. However, I did do a special edition of the Lock Shop today with Jake Bolin Moss. We got some bowl game picks from Jake, who's been great on college football this week. So if you just go to my Twitter at Hustlerama, you'll see the tweet. You can pop in. It's about a half-hour episode on YouTube with all of our picks, hopefully continuing a great run hitting the NFL in the Lock Shop. And of course, give us a follow at Lock Shop Bets on Twitter, and check out where we normally have the shows on our regular YouTube channel. But with Dusty away, chopped it up on the Cool Bet page this week with Jake heading in to New Year's Eve and Week 17 in the National Football League. All right, one NFL game I will mention. We talked about it with Lee. Monday Nighter. We won't be doing a show on Monday. We'll be back on Tuesday, and you're damn sure know that we'll be talking about this game. Buffalo, Cincinnati, the Bengals, who day, 1.5-point home dogs, even money to win the game. Buffalo laying 1.5 on the road and -122. And yes, Chiefs fans, hope the Chiefs can get a win tomorrow against Denver. And if Cincinnati were able to beat the Bills, since KC jumps into the number 1 seed. And man, the number 1 seed is huge this year, because the bottom line is, in all likelihood, if things go as expected, one of those 3 teams is going to get the bye and play the winner of the 4-5 game. And then in all likelihood, you'll have 2 of Kansas City, Buffalo, and Cincinnati playing in the divisional round before the AFC Championship game. So huge weekend coming up in the National Football League. Use the promo code WST at coolbet.com. If you haven't deposited before, get you a 100% bonus on your first deposit up to $200. Remo, I think it's just about time.
It is time. Here, a couple. Bobby B, thank you for the super chat here. Derek Schmidt gifted 5 memberships as well. And
right on, Derek. Thanks so much. And Bobby B, right on, man. Hey, listen, this is so nice of you guys. And listen, I love the giving memberships too, getting people a little heads up. By the way, next week, we will have a little promo for our members because we're going to get a bunch of tickets for that Ukraine Bisons game coming up a week on Monday. So We'll probably do some on the show as well. But, it's always nice every now and then. We get such a great support from the members of the channel. So when we have tickets like that, we'll do something. And by the way, I know there's been some questions. We will have another pair of AEW tickets to give away at some point in the new year as well. And hopefully we can continue giving some great prizes for our listeners. But that being said, there has never been a prize on Winnipeg Sports Talk like what we are going to be giving away this afternoon. And that is 2023 Bomber season tickets. If you've been away, if you just joined up today, we have done the Marbles Tournament of Champions, and I need to quickly thank Joe over at Consolidated Supply, first and foremost, who reached out and said, Huss, we should do something really cool together for the holidays, for Winnipeg Sports Talk listeners. That's one of the coolest things about working with guys like Joe at Consolidated Supply. They're also listeners. They're with us every day, much like Nick and the rest of the gang. So this is it. This is the culmination. We've done, I think, in total 14 qualifiers. And then, of course, we picked the 3 names from everyone that entered on the website last night. Congratulations to T-Bone, Rob Somerville, and Candace who got in. And Remo, now our final act of 2022 is going to be to drop the marbles for all of our qualifiers one more time and see who is the top dog in the Winnipeg Sports Talk Marbles Tournament of Champions.
I'm pretty nervous how this is going to turn out. We got a lot of chat regulars here in the list. 46 marbles. I see a number of them today. Trevor Red Ranger is in. Phyllis and Tico Napoli. I think he's a favorite. I see Jeff Johnson in chat. He's in. There's a number of people. Will Free Oleg win? 22 Canuck said he's excited. We've got emails, people who said they never won anything before. They're excited for this. And who was it yesterday who said, I gotta be honest, guys, like I'm super pumped at. So
by the way, a couple more super chats. M. Sheldon. Thank you, M. Sheldon. Happy New Year, WST. Good luck to all in the marble race. And Al Broderick as well. Al, Happy New Year, and thank you very much for the support. All right, before you unveil our championship track, Remo, I think we need to unveil, and by the way, a special thank you to Tristan Rivers Music, who was an early qualifier, and Candace for the incredible work that they have done with the songs, the videos, and the different versions of the Marble Race song. That was another huge treat. It was like a musical advent calendar on WST throughout the month of December.
Yes, I said I wanted just a acoustic one. I didn't know we were going to get it like a new one of a different musical style every day. So that was like a present, opening a present every morning, getting the emails with the song. So an incredible work. And we do have a special finale song here too.
I think that it's about that time to cue up qualifier Tristan Rivers Music one more time. And thanks again, Tristan. You are the best. Listen, a mainstay for all the shows in the digital space. The creative genius behind some of these things is so much fun. And it has really taken this show and the fun that we have, especially with the Marble Race, to another level. One more time in 2022, but a new version, a championship version of the Marble song before we drop it for Bomber season tickets, courtesy of Consolidated Supply here on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
It's the final Friday, another year nearly gone by. For those still standing, one event left thanks to Consolidated Supply. But for those whose day is done, relax and chat and cheer. As always, next time round, a fresh Marble start and a happy new year. It's time to do a final Marble race. No skill separating best to worst. Marble race. No need to time marbles as you were third, second, or first. Marble race. In the balance, it's
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Tristan, I just need to sit back and applaud the Queen version with special lyrics. The chat is absolutely on fire right now. Remo, I didn't think that we could get it. I wasn't sure they could top everything that Tristan had dropped on us through the month of December, but what a way to finish up 2022 on WST with that.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw me with a Freddie Mercury mustache and a leotard throwing Oleg over the top rope. So
I did.
If you're listening on the podcast, you're got to come in and see all these tailored videos. Yeah,
go to the YouTube. It is definitely worth your while if you've made it this far to get over there to YouTube. Tristan, unbelievable. All right, well, there's only one thing left to do. And that's once again, thanks Consolidated Supply. Shout out Tristan for giving them a stroke for the Tournament of Champions in the song. And now the qualifiers are set. Remis, where are we going today? I know you've been testing some tracks, and we've got a good one for our final.
So we tested a bunch. We ran a race. We did run this track in one qualifier, Slippery Slopes. This is going to be an epic finish. Everyone's name is in there. I know Manny says he doesn't see his name. Pretty confident they're all in there. I'm pretty confident.
Worry.
I copied it from the thing. They're all in there.
And here it is. Just a quick rundown. Steph, Cowboy, M. Sheldon, Trevor Red Ranger, Polish Pumper, SK, Phyllis, Mike Wynn, Royster, Bartholomew, Tristan Rivers Music, Ross Ransby, Jeff Johnson, Cord Kicker, Smoke Speedrun Corner, Ramo Auto, Winnipeg Walter, David Zirk, Bobby B, Jeremy Nickerson, Russ Lowen, Mike Cochran, Winnipeg, T. Kona Pauly, Jeff Wozni, Jeff Coldwell, Mike Rogers, Jay Ferg, Free Oleg, Pie Boy, 22 Canuck, Bruce H, Walk with Vince, iHeart Gaming, Brad Woods, Brad Kerbison, Jeff Bowes, Sean Clark, Manny Fran, Goody Gravy, Smoley, Dom Zappia, Key, and then our online qualifiers, T-Bone, Rob Somerville, and Candace Jane. Everyone, you've made it this far. Now it's time to win the Slippery Slopes and a pair of 2023 season tickets for the best damn team in the Canadian Football League on the Unfinished Business Tour. Thanks again to Joe, Buck, Spicy, the guys at Consolidated Supply for their support of us. This has been way better than we could have even imagined. And one final time in 2022, Michael Remis, let's drop the marbles in the Tournament of Champions. Here we go. The Slippery Slopes. Phyllis with a nice start. Jeff Wozni looking good. Stakes are high, and it is so close coming out. Looks like M. Sheldon's got a nice Trevor Red Ranger. Winnipeg Walters there as well. It is absolutely anybody's race right now, Reem.
Yes, this is pretty wild. Everyone's in there, but this is going to be a lengthy one, so it's a marathon, not a sprint here.
That's exactly right. M. Sheldon putting together a little bit of space. Bruce H. I see Pie Boy there. Jeremy's got some nice speed right now. Now we get into the first of the funnels. Who's going to get down first right now as we look to see who. This is always a very key part of any race. Who is getting through the funnel first? Looks like Goody Gravy with a very slight lead right now. Winnipeg Walter, Bengals fan extraordinaire now with the lead. Brad Woods, Gord. I see Jeff Wozni in there. I think Manny as well. Ramo Auto looking pretty good, but right now.
You see that boulder? It's blocking the track. Not everyone can get through.
Oh, my God.
It just fell.
This is a disaster, a catastrophe. Manny Fred was looking good into first, but no. Right now, it is Winnipeg Walter and Brad Woods. Brad with some speed right now. The marbles collide. Jeff Wozni on a bit of a heater running through. And there's been a stop. Winnipeg Walter looking like he's going to be the first one that got through, although Walter stopped too. There is a lot going on right now a major traffic jam of the marbles. Now everyone's rolling again, but Winnipeg Walter, with a bit of a lead right now that he's built up, hits the first obstacle as we get through. Still have not had any eliminations right now. Oh, and here we get into the skis. Dom Zappia, walk with Vince, Brad Woods, cord kicker, Manny Franz there, Ramo Otto, Jeff Wozni. But Winnipeg Walter seemingly with a slight lead right now, working the skis, trying to be the first marble out. Walter
First two eliminations has Goody Gravy and
Goody Gravy
T-Bone.
and TT T-Bone over the top rope. Sorry, guys. It was a good run. All right. Winnipeg Walter looks like he's got a bit of a lead right now. Candace Jane over the top rope. Oh, sorry to hear that, Candace. Walter's got slowed down a little bit. Oh, Jeff Wozni and Bartholomew out. Now we've got SK. We've got Dom and Walk with Vince that are trying to make a push to Winnipeg Walter, but Walter right now first up this tube and still in control of today's Marble Race Tournament of Champions finale. But we've got Brad Woods making some moves right now and Manny Fran as well. Big slide. Will Walter get it? Will Walter get it? Is he in? We have a winner. Winnipeg Walter, the first ever winner and champion of the Winnipeg Sports Talk Tournament of Champions. And Remo, great call on slippery slopes. And you look and see, Walter got in. Not everyone is getting into that final one. So it certainly was an incredible, incredible race and an incredible run. Winnipeg Walter, our champion. Manny Fran coming up second. Brad Kerbison, number 3. Walk with Vince, number 4. Dom Zappia, 5th. The Polish Pumper, number 6. Key 3, SK, Pie Boy, and Peppermint Patty. Ross Ransby, Roscoe, wasn't your day, my friend. Still a couple marbles still to come. We'll see whether they get burnt. Tristan Rivers music, stealing the show, just hanging out at the top of the slippery slope, deciding whether he wants to come down. Here we go. Here's Tristan finishing it up. And it's in. Winnipeg Walter. Listen, there was a high probability that it was going to be one of our regulars that were going to win this thing, Remo. But I got to tell you, shout out to Walter, in here almost every day. Yes, he's given me a lot of brain damage when his Bengals have beaten my Chiefs on multiple occasions. But still great to see one of our regs. And thanks again to everyone from participating. I have a feeling, Remo, that considering the success of the December Tournament of Champions, one thing I can tell you without any question is that we'll be doing some more special marble races. It's almost like the marbles have become synonymous with WST. I tweeted out yesterday, I had tons of people at the game come up, talk to me, not about the Big Jets win afterwards, but about the race that we just put through. Walter, congratulations.
Yeah, I was kind of worried like doing it every day would kind of give overkill, but no. I think the suspense was certainly there. I was hitting, like my hand was shaking, hitting the start button. I've never been so nervous running, like picking a track. This was an excellent track. We did have a couple DNFs, 30 of 46 did finish. It was when you got to the skis when it was pretty wild in there on the skis. So I wasn't sure if Walter was going to make the jump. You weren't sure because I think it was Brad Woods who was second. He fell just short. Yeah. And Walter got in the cup and he was there. Manny Fran was second. He was like almost 20 seconds behind Walter. So a very well-run race by Walter, who is in chat. We're typing in all caps. Very excited. Says he never wins anything. He is so excited. Let me pull up. He says, I'm trying to think what else he wrote. He says, I can't believe it. Woo. Winnipeg Walter with the Bengals logo beside his name. Very, very pumped for these season
Dakota
tickets.
Pauly has texted Mike Lindell about the results today. Oh, man. Pauly, everyone, this was such a fun way to finish up. Just an amazing year for us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. And Walter, congratulations. Season tickets, we'll get those arranged in the first couple weeks in January when the guys at Consolidated Supply are back in the office. We'll work all that out. But in the meantime, just promise us this. If you can't go to a game, let's fire the tickets to us and we'll do a marble race for them here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Any reason to crank out the marbles again. Remo, what a year it's been and what a great fun way to end it. Big Jets win last night. Big marble race today. Bomber season tickets courtesy of Consolidated Supply. And McDavid and the Oilers getting ready for the Jets tomorrow night for one final game in 2022.
Yeah, what a great year it's been. We had so much fun. The end of the Jets season was blah. The Bomber season was awesome, except for the final game. And the start of this season, October, basically since the summer, it's been awesome. And I can't say I would have thought the Jets would be battling for first place, even though they have so many injuries. They can still win games, and I'm looking forward to seeing McDavid. And hopefully it's not a New Year's Eve thrashing. We get a competitive game, and the Jets pull out a close one. So we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully Morrissey is in the lineup. We're all kind of nervous. It doesn't sound like something too serious. It sounds like they think that he should be able to go, but kind of a little, he's team's top scorer, Hustler. And that's something also I don't think I thought we would be saying as well.
No, and you know what? And with all the accolades we've given to Josh Morrissey and Connor Hellebuck and Mark Scheifele, the 2022 Winnipeg Sports Talk Man of the Year. Let me see those bones in the chat, everybody. Rick Bowness, Man of the Year on Winnipeg Sports Talk, the author of the most incredible, improbable turnaround, just in atmosphere, in everything. Like, I don't know if I've ever seen a coach come in and be more impactful than what Rick Bowness has been. The team sure as hell needed it, but they're getting it right now. Hell of a lot of fun going to the rink right now, and a lot of fun watching this team continue to push forward despite everything that has been thrown at them. And it's going to be a real fun 2023, and hopefully we'll be getting the whites out come spring. Still lots of work to be done, but we'll look forward to talking all about it come Tuesday on our show. We'll have Monday off for New Year's, but we will be back on Tuesday. It's going to be a game day. I believe the Jets hosting the Calgary Flames that day, and Tampa Bay coming up. So on behalf of Michael Remis, folks, a very happy New Year. Be safe. Don't drink and drive. Enjoy it with family and friends. Have one for us. And we will look forward to seeing you in 2023. Thank you so much for the support on a daily basis. Tell a friend. That's the New Year's resolution for everyone. Tell somebody about Winnipeg Sports Talk. Show them how to subscribe to the channel. And let's grow as we get into year 3 in early March. Hard to believe. It's going to do it for us, folks. Have a great weekend. Enjoy New Year's Eve. We'll see you next year on Tuesday, as a matter of fact, with more right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Have a great one.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.